Chapter 2006. The purple-robed young man walked straight out of the room after he finished speaking. Let's go. There's no time to lose. Those treasures are of great significance. Even those in the Emperor realm would drool if they saw them. The bewitching young girls in the room hurriedly followed. ZK, you're lucky to have met the young master in a good mood. Otherwise, you'd be in trouble this time. Someone passed by ZK and transmitted her voice with a charming smile. ZK snorted coldly and ignored her. In fact, she was also in a cold sweat just now. Her heart was in her throat. She was afraid that the young master would suddenly kill her. This kind of thing had happened more than once in the past. On the vast universe arc that was flying towards the Xuanji sect. What's your name? Sing Yuandu. Sing as your surname? Yes, my ancestor was a wandering ascetic monk. He had profound dharma and unparalleled cultivation. Later, he married a wife and had children, so he took Sing as his surname. On the treasure ship, Lin Sun was talking to the thin middle-aged man who claimed to be called Sing Yuandu. Sing Yuandu seemed very honest and docile. He answered whatever Lin Sun asked. Obviously, he knew that he couldn't afford to offend someone as strong as Lin Sun. So, the treasures in the bronze box were obtained by your ancestor from the Kunlun ruins? Lin Sun's black eyes flickered. Sing Yuandu said without hesitation, of course. Otherwise, how could the guy with the silver mask pay twice the price to redeem it? But since it's your family's heirloom, why are you willing to sell it? Lin Sun's words made Sing Yuandu look embarrassed. He sighed helplessly. My family has declined and I'm just a false saint. I didn't intend to do this at first, but for the sake of my son's cultivation, I can only do this. He took a deep breath and said with a complicated expression, although I'm not very capable as a father, I don't want my son to be like me. In order for him to walk further and higher on the great path, what's the big deal about selling some ancestral treasures? Lin Sun didn't say anything. This was the good intentions of a father. Although Sing Yuandu appeared to be very down and out and incompetent, the care and concern he had for his son was very touching. Can you tell me the origin of these treasures? Lin Sun asked. Sing Yuandu asked in surprise. Don't you already know? I want to hear it from you. Sing Yuandu let out a long sigh and said, Looks like you don't believe that these treasures were brought out from the Kunlun ruins. That's right. Those lousy things look very mysterious, but they're completely useless. Even I find it hard to believe that these things have any earth-shattering secrets, let alone outsiders like you. That chest of treasures had been passed down from his ancestors' generation and had been guarded and safeguarded by generations after generations of the monk family's descendants. However, countless years had passed, yet no one had been able to discover the secrets of these treasures. By the time it reached Sing Yuandu's hands, he had already lost all hope for these treasures. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken them out to sell. Tell me about it. Whether it's true or not, I want to hear it, Lin Sun said. Sing Yuandu sorted out his thoughts and said, My ancestor's Dharma name is Ji Yi. His identity is extremely mysterious. Our family's books only record that he was an extremely great figure, but we don't know exactly how great he was. We, the descendants of the monk family, only know that ancestor Ji Yi once entered the Kunlun ruins and saw an extremely miraculous treasure furnace. That treasure furnace could fly out mysterious and unfathomable emperor weapons. When he heard this, Lin Sun's heart shook, and a name appeared in his mind: the refinement source furnace. Kunlun ruins had the 9 secrets and 3 treasures. The 9 secrets of Kunlun were 9 secret realms. Each secret realm had given birth to an emperor weapon, so there were 9 emperor weapons in total. These 9 emperor weapons were all refined by the refinement source furnace, and they were also known as the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. For example, the Great Tao Immeasurable Bottle and the Great Tao No Blame Lamp that Lin Sun currently possessed were 2 of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. Sing Yuandu continued, later on, when ancestor Ji Yi left, he brought back these treasures. After waiting for a while, Lin Sun was stunned. That's all? Sing Yuandu said awkwardly. How can we, the juniors of the monk family, know so much about the matters of the primordial era? Lin Sun was speechless. After thinking for a while, he asked, Where's your son now? Sing Yuandu said vigilantly, Fellow Taoist, don't bring disaster to your wife and children. You've already bought the ancestral treasures of my family. Are you still planning to kill me? Lin Sun couldn't help but laugh. Don't you want your son to cultivate in a Taoist orthodoxy? With my help, I guarantee you won't have to spend a single Taoist crystal. Only then did Sing Yuandu realize that he had misunderstood Lin Sun. He said excitedly, Fellow Taoist, is that true? What do you think of Xuanji Taoist sect? Who doesn't know about the third major orthodoxy in Cloud Province? I've been looking forward to my son cultivating in Xuanji Taoist sect. Lin Sun said, I'll take you there right away and solve this matter. It'll be some compensation to you. Sing Yuandu nodded repeatedly. He was so excited that he was at a loss. Then, thank you so much, fellow Taoist. I'll definitely repay your kindness. Half an hour later, in front of the towering Divine Wind Taoist mountain, Lin Sun floated down with Sing Yuandu. Young friend, this way please. In the mountain gate, the elder of Xuanji Taoist sect, Hong Yu, appeared immediately. Obviously, he had been waiting there for a long time. Thanks a lot. Lin Sun nodded and followed Hong Yu into Xuanji Taoist sect. Seeing Lin Sun being treated with such respect, Sing Yuandu immediately believed that what Lin Sun had promised him before was not an exaggeration. This is great. That child of mine can finally be like those geniuses and enter a grand Tao orthodoxy to cultivate. Sing Yuandu was so excited that he felt like crying. No one could understand the feeling of being a father without being a father. For the sake of their children's future, they could give everything they had. Yushu Peak. This was originally the place where Heng Xiao, the headmaster, cultivated. Later, it was lent to Lin Sun for temporary residence. When Hong Yu and Lin Sun arrived at Yushu Peak, Heng Xiao greeted them with a smile. Young friend, congratulations for winning the first place in the Tao discussion of Yunzhou. Lin Sun also greeted him with a smile. This is? Heng Xiao looked at Sing Yuandu beside Lin Sun. Sing Yuandu trembled all over, his heart beating violently. He was so nervous that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Heng Xiao. How could he not have heard of the headmaster of Xuanji Taoist sect? But he never thought that as soon as he arrived at Xuanji Taoist sect, he would meet such a legendary figure. For a moment, he was also extremely nervous. Lin Sun did not explain much. He only said that he hoped to recommend Sing Yuandu's son to cultivate in Xuanji Taoist sect. Heng Xiao agreed without hesitation. It's just a place for apprenticeship. You don't have to worry about it at all. Just leave it to me. Sing Yuandu opened his mouth wide. What he regarded as an extremely difficult matter was actually solved by Lin Sun in a few words. This made him feel as if he was in a dream. After a long while, he came to his senses and bowed to Heng Xiao with gratitude. Thank you, headmaster. Thank you, headmaster. Heng Xiao said with a smile, You can take a rest here first. Tomorrow, I will personally go with you to meet your son. Sing Yuandu nodded repeatedly, full of joy. Soon, an attendant took him away. After settling Sing Yuandu down, Heng Xiao said to Lin Sun, Young friend, Boyazi will return to Xuanji Taoist sect tomorrow. At that time, I will arrange for you to meet him. Lin Sun said, Sorry to trouble you. Heng Xiao smiled casually. Young friend, don't regard me as an outsider. Don't do this in the future. Others may not know your identity, but how can I not know? Lin Sun was speechless. Headmaster, there is a distinguished guest outside the mountain gate. Suddenly, a figure emerged in the distant clouds and spoke respectfully. Where is the distinguished guest from? Heng Xiao frowned. It is said to be from the Central Earth Taoist province. Upon hearing this reply, Heng Xiao was startled and frowned. The Central Earth Taoist province was the first province in the primordial world. It was regarded as the land of the ancestral court, where the 6 major Taoist courts and the 10 major war clans resided. "Young friend, take a rest. I will go and have a look," said Hing Xiao. Lin Sun nodded and watched Hing Xiao leave in a hurry. Then, he walked into the blessed enclave specially prepared for him. Boom! As the formation of the blessed enclave was activated, it was immediately isolated from the outside world. Lin Sun raised his hand and waved. The huge bronze chest appeared and landed steadily on the ground. He took out the talisman key and inserted it into the center of the heavy restrictions covering the bronze chest. As the lid slowly opened, the scene inside the chest came into Lin Sun's view again. A bronze Taoist seal, an apricot yellow flag, a piece of gray soil, and a piece of decaying divine wood. 4 kinds of treasures were inconspicuous. However, Lin Sun's eyes suddenly became extremely bright, no longer concealing the joy and excitement in his heart. As a person who had entered the Kunlun ruins and seen all kinds of magical things in the Kunlun ruins, he realized that these treasures were extraordinary as soon as he saw them in the underground black market. Not to mention spending 9 million Tao gems, it's worth it even if I spend 100 or 1,000 times more Tao gems. While sighing with emotion in his heart, Lin Sun flipped his palm and a black copper block appeared. He held it in his hand as if he was holding an ancient divine mountain. This copper block was the one Lin Sun obtained from the siege of a group of strong people on the upside-down mountain in the Kunlun ruins. Its origins could absolutely be said to be shocking, because it was a fragment left behind by the source furnace. Buzz, as Lin Sun took out the copper block, an obscure power fluctuation appeared on the surface of the bronze Taoist seal and the apricot yellow flag in the bronze chest. It was as if they had awakened from the silence of countless years. In Lin Sun's palm, the copper block of the source furnace also became hot, producing a wonderful reaction with the bronze Taoist seal and the apricot yellow flag. For a moment, obscure waves emerged like tides, communicating between the 3 treasures, and the buzzing sound reverberated incessantly. Chapter 2007. When he was in the Kunlun ruins all those years ago, Lin Sun had once seen the Great Tao Bell. It was also through the strand of willpower left behind by this treasure that Lin Sun understood many secrets. For example, the 9 emperor weapons that were born in the source furnace were a divine sword, a spear, a bronze lamp, a flag, a seal, a jade bottle, a set of armor, a jade plate, and a divine saber. The Great Tao Bell once said, "The source furnace forged the 9 emperor weapons to defend Kunlun, but it also violated a taboo and encountered an unprecedented calamity, causing the source furnace to completely disintegrate and dissipate." These 9 emperor weapons were hidden in the 9 secret places of Kunlun, and in the following years, they were taken away by fated people who entered the Kunlun ruins one after another. Amongst them, the jade bottle of one of the 9 emperor weapons was called the Great Tao Boundless Bottle, and it was first taken away by Li Xianwei on Mount Fangsuan. Later on, Lin Sun obtained it by chance on Kangwu Divine Mountain in the ancient Desolation region. That copper lamp was called the Great Tao No Blame Lamp. Lin Sun obtained it from a skeleton boatman when he entered the bloody underworld, the apex domain. Lin Sun had already obtained 2 of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. At this moment, when he saw the miraculous changes that occurred between the source furnace, the bronze seal, and the apricot yellow flag, Lin Sun immediately thought of the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun. He also thought of 2 treasures: the Great Tao Lifeless Seal, the Great Tao Boundless Flag. Could it be these 2 emperor weapons? Lin Sun couldn't help but feel excited. He took a deep breath and flipped his palm, and the Great Tao Boundless Bottle and the Great Tao Innocence Lamp appeared. Instantly, an extremely miraculous scene appeared. The Great Tao Boundless Bottle and the Great Tao Innocence Lamp glowed together, and they produced an obscure fluctuation that fused with the aura of the bronze seal, and apricot yellow flag. They resonated with each other, and the obscure energy was like a ripple that enshrouded and seethed between the treasures. As expected, Lin Sun's breathing stopped, and his black eyes lit up. He acutely noticed that a blurry pattern had condensed on the fist-sized bronze seal. In the pattern, the stars were resplendent, the surroundings were vast, the mountains, rivers, and all living beings resided. However, as a deep bronze light descended from the sky, the boundless starry sky suddenly collapsed and shattered. Countless stars turned into powder, and the mountains, rivers, and all phenomena collapsed and were destroyed. The souls of all the living beings in the world were all destroyed. The shocking killing scene shocked Lin Sun's mind and made him gasp in astonishment. In the end, only a Taoist seal floated amidst the boundless destruction, and it emanated an obscure and mysterious bronze glow. Boom! At this moment, the pattern dissipated, and strands of Tao markings appeared on the surface of the bronze seal that lay quietly in the box. They formed two heavy and ancient Tao markings, Wu Xing. Under the great Tao there was only death and no life. Without a doubt, this seemingly inconspicuous bronze seal was one of the 9 Kunlun Emperor weapons, the great Tao lifeless seal. Whoosh! Before Lin Sun could react, a flash of brilliant light suddenly emerged from the apricot flag. The banners fluttered and fluttered, and they emanated multicolored lights of the Tao that were hazy like mist. For a moment, Lin Sun's hair stood on end. These brilliant lights of the Tao looked dreamy and beautiful, but they gave people the feeling that the peerless sword god was coming to the world. Every ray of Tao light was like a ray of supreme sword chi that was enough to split the sky and earth. It seemed that as long as the apricot flag was willing, the endless Tao light would change into a terrible lethality. No matter where you hid, you couldn't escape from this kind of killing. Just like at this moment, Lin Sun's current combat power was so terrible, but when he saw these brilliant Tao light, he felt frightened and his body tightened as if a great disaster was coming. In the end, the dazzling and resplendent glow of the Tao that was hazy like rain silently restrained and vanished within the apricot yellow flag. On the surface of the flag, 2 Tao markings also emerged, which were as elegant as swords and as light as feathers, Wufang. There was no fixed form, no fixed method, it was ever-changing, and there was nothing it couldn't do. Obviously, as Lin Sun had guessed before, this apricot flag was also one of the 9 Kunlun Emperor weapons, and it was called the Great Tao Boundless Flag. Lin Sun's heart was filled with surprise at this moment. He really didn't expect that just by walking in the underground black market, he would accidentally pick up such a great opportunity. He put away the copper piece, the infinite bottle, and the lamp of no blame. Then, he raised his hand and waved, taking out the lifeless seal and Wufang flag that had completely changed in appearance. Looking carefully, these 2 treasures had no spirituality, no aura fluctuations, and were even more inconspicuous. At this moment, the lifeless seal showed a kind of solemn, cold, and terrifying aura. When it was held in his hand, it was like holding an ancient divine mountain. The Wufang flag, on the other hand, was as light as nothing. When held in his hand, the flag swayed, and its color was crystal clear, giving people a feeling of being ethereal. In the end, Lin Sun resisted the impulse in his heart and didn't immediately test the power of these 2 emperor weapons. Seng Yuandu said that his ancestor, Ji Yi, once entered the Kunlun ruins and brought out these treasures when he left. There are even 2 imperial weapons among them. From the looks of it, Ji Yi is definitely an extraordinary and terrifying figure. Lin Sun's eyes were deep as he thought. Kunlun ruins and Mount Fangtsuan were inextricably linked. For example, in the Immortality Peach secret realm, there were traces left behind by that arrogant senior brother. Until now, there was still a woman whose figure was like a purple cloud, silently waiting for this senior brother's return. In the secret realm at the peak of Mount Yulong, senior brother Li Xianwei had once entered and taken away the great Tao immeasurable bottle. In the forbidden area of the Ascension platform, one of the 3 forbidden areas of Kunlun, ninth senior brother Guyupu, had suppressed demon Emperor Dutian under the god-sealing sky peak. The inheritance left behind by the founding master of Mount Fangtsuan was on the ascension platform. This series of events proved that the orthodoxy of Mount Fangtsuan and Kunlun ruins were destined to have an inseparable relationship. At this moment, Lin Sun could not help but suspect if Ji Yi, who had taken away the two emperor weapons, the lifeless seal and the Wufang flag, was also related to Mount Fangtsuan. After thinking for a long time, Lin Sun could not figure it out, so he stopped thinking about it. When he met the other senior brothers and sisters of Mount Fangtsuan in the future, he would ask them if they had heard of Ji Yi. Lin Sun put away the lifeless seal and the Wufang flag, and his gaze fell on the remaining gray soil and a piece of decaying divine wood in the bronze box. What kind of treasures were these two? Just when Lin Sun was about to find out, Heng Zhao's voice suddenly sounded from outside the cave abode. "My young friend, sorry to disturb you. There's really something important that I have to tell you." Lin Sun immediately waved his sleeve, put away the bronze box, and walked out of the cave abode. "Fellow Taoist, what happened?" Outside the cave abode, Heng Zhao stood there alone with a gloomy expression and a frown on his face. This caused Lin Sun to be slightly surprised. "Earlier, I went to see the distinguished guest from the Central Plains Taoist state who came to visit, and I found out the identity of that distinguished guest." Heng Zhao took a deep breath and told Lin Sun everything that had happened earlier. It turned out that when he went to the guest hall, he saw a group of people, and the person in the lead was a young man in a purple robe. He had a lazy and unrestrained bearing, but his every movement seemed like a sovereign descending upon the world. A group of peerless beauties surrounded the young man in a purple robe, which made him look even more extraordinary. After talking with Lin Sun, Heng Zhao learned that the young man in a purple robe was called Zhuan Yuheng from the Zhuan Yu clan, an imperial family. When he was young, he entered the Universe Taoist court to cultivate. Now, he was one of the core successors of the Universe Taoist court, and he was like a peerless genius. When Lin Sun heard the name Zhuan Yuheng, a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. He remembered that on the Ascension Altar, one of the three forbidden areas of Kunlun ruins, Zhuan Yuheng was one of the experts who finally reached the top of the Ascension Altar. He came to capture and search for a strong man who once appeared in the underground black market of Lingfeng City with the help of our Xuanji Taoist sect. When I saw the portrait of the wanted strong man, speaking of this, Heng Zhao's eyes became strange. Lin Sun pointed at his nose, "Looking for me?" Heng Zhao nodded and said with a wry smile, "Zhuan Yu used his identity and background to pressure me, and promised that as long as he could catch you, he would do his best to help Xuanji Taoist sect in the future. I don't believe such nonsense, but I have to agree to his request on the surface. So as soon as I sent them away, I immediately came to meet you, my young friend." Lin Sun completely understood. The silver-masked man he saw in the underground black market should not be Zhuan Yuheng, but he must be related to him. The reason why Zhuan Yuheng wanted to capture him through the hands of Xuanji Taoist sect was none other than for the treasure in the bronze box. What a coincidence! Lin Sun thought for a moment. His figure flashed, and his aura suddenly changed. He had already used the yellow Taoist body to replace his original body, as if he had become another person. Heng Zhao was stunned. He opened his eyes wide and carefully looked at Lin Sun for a moment before saying, "What a wonderful disguise." He was a quasi-emperor, but he couldn't see the slightest flaw. Moreover, he remembered that Lin Sun also appeared in front of the world in the Tao discussion of Yunzhou. Lin Sun smiled and said, "In this way, I'm afraid there's no hope for Zhuan Yuheng to find me." Heng Zhao also smiled, "That's for the best." However, at this moment, Lin Sun's expression changed slightly because in his body, the four emperor weapons, the infinite bottle, the innocent lamp, the lifeless seal, and the directionless flag, all produced a strange fluctuation. At the same time, the fragments of the source furnace also began to buzz and tremble. This made Lin Sun suddenly recall that when he was in Kunlun ruins, the Great Way Lawless Bell had once said, "Young friend, in the future, if you encounter other powerhouses who hold the 9 emperor weapons of Kunlun, you will have a strange reaction. Similarly, you will be sensed by the place immediately. It's hard to say whether it's a blessing or a curse. Right now, the unusual movements of the infinite bottle and the other emperor weapons seem to confirm the words of the Great Way Lawless Bell." Ha ha ha, interesting. Sect Master Heng Shao, who would have thought that the person I'm looking for would be hiding in your Xuanji Taoist sect? Suddenly, a loud laughter resounded from afar, shattering the clouds in all directions. Accompanied by the laughter, a purple and imposing figure whistled over under the escort of a group of young women. Heng Zhao's expression changed instantly. Zhuan Yu Heng actually didn't leave. Chapter 2008. In front of Yushu Peak. When Lin Sun saw the purple-robed young man, Zhuan Yu Heng and his companions, his eyes became subtle. It was really this guy. Zhuan Yu Heng was the first peerless powerhouse to be conferred as a sage with the help of the will of all living beings on the pilgrimage platform, one of the 3 forbidden areas of Kunlun ruins. The pilgrimage tablet imprinted by him was suspended at a height of 70,000 meters, which shocked everyone present. Of course, compared with Lin Sun's achievements in the pilgrimage, it was much dimmer. However, Lin Sun didn't expect to see him again here after so many years. Judging from his momentum, he had reached the perfection of the Saint King realm. In less than 10 years, he has broken through from the perfection of the Great Saint realm. He deserves to be the successor of the Heaven and Earth Taoism court. Lin Sun couldn't help thinking of Gu Zongxin, Yan Chunjun and other strong people he killed in Kunlun ruins. They were all from the Heaven and Earth Taoism court like Zhuan Yu Heng. However, when Zhuan Yu Heng was on the pilgrimage platform, he didn't show any hostility to Lin Sun. One reason was that he was afraid of Lin Sun's fighting power, and the other was that he didn't want to cause trouble, lest it delayed his opportunity to compete for the pilgrimage platform. Therefore, Lin Sun didn't have much hostility to Zhuan Yu Heng. But at the same time, he also knew that this meeting wouldn't be pleasant. Sure enough, as soon as Zhuan Yu Heng arrived in a purple robe, his star-like eyes locked on Lin Sun. With a playful smile on his lips, he said in a cold voice, "Headmaster Heng Shao, it's not right of you to do this." Heng Shao took a deep breath and said, "Child Zhuan Yu, what are you talking about?" "Oh, don't pretend." Zhuan Yu Heng was disdainful. He didn't care about Heng Zhao's ugly face at all. He pointed at Lin Sun and said to ZK beside him, "Is this the person you saw in the underground black market?" ZK looked at Lin Sun carefully for a moment and said doubtfully, "Child, it shouldn't be this person. His aura and charm are completely different from the person I've seen." Zhuan Yu Heng was stunned, and a wisp of frightening golden light emerged in his eyes. He looked Lin Sun up and down and scrupulously for a moment and frowned. He didn't disguise himself. "Are you sure you didn't see wrongly?" ZK nodded. "I dare not lie about such an important matter." Heng Shao said when he heard this, "Looks like this is probably merely a misunderstanding. This young friend is called Jin Di, and he just seized the title of first in the Cloud Prefecture's Dao discussion not too long ago. There's no one in the entire Cloud Prefecture that doesn't know his name." The first in the Cloud Prefecture's Dao discussion? Zhuan Yu Heng was stunned for a moment before he sneered. "Headmaster Heng Shao, are you reminding me that Jin Di is not to be trifled with?" Behind him, the enchanting women covered their mouths and giggled. With his status as the young master, how could he possibly fear a mere champion of the Cloud Prefecture Dao discussion? Heng Shao said, "Young master, you've misunderstood. This old man just wanted to say that could it be that you've recognized the wrong person?" "Impossible." Zhuan Yu Heng spoke resolutely. His gaze had always been locked firmly onto Lin Sun as if he was staring at his prey, and it carried a playful and cold expression. Headmaster Heng Xiao, I want to have a chat with this fellow Taoist Jin Di. If you don't want to bring calamity to the Xuanji Dao sect, then please step aside and don't interfere in this matter. His tone was indifferent, yet it revealed an arrogant bearing of judging the world. After all, this was the Xuanji Dao sect, and Heng Xiao was the headmaster of the Xuanji Dao sect. Yet now, Zhuanyu Heng had actually bluntly threatened Heng Xiao with the intention of making him step back. This couldn't be described as arrogant any longer, and it was because he didn't take Heng Xiao and the Xuanji Dao sect that stood behind Heng Xiao seriously at all. Heng Xiao's expression changed indeterminately, and he was furious to the extreme in his heart. Right at this moment, Lin Sun, who'd been watching coldly from the side, suddenly started laughing, and he said, "Headmaster Heng Xiao, I want to seize this opportunity to have a chat with this young master Zhuanyu as well. No matter what happens, you don't have to pay any attention to it." Heng Xiao was stunned. Zhuanyu Heng raised his thumb and laughed wantonly. He said, "You're very tactful, and I admire you very much. As long as you're still so tactful later, I won't make things difficult for you." Heng Xiao looked at Lin Sun, and when he saw the latter's firm attitude, he sighed in his heart and said, "Forget it. I promise that when the two of you talk, neither I nor anyone from the Xuanji Dao sect will get involved in your affairs." After that, he turned around and left. Zhuanyu Heng waved his hand. "ZK, you guys leave as well. This matter, I'll settle it myself." ZK and the others nodded and left. Soon, only Lin Sun and Zhuanyu Heng were left on Yushu Peak. "Jin Di, right? You should know why I'm targeting you." Zhuanyu Heng stared at Lin Sun with a frightening gaze. "Let's put it this way. I only want 2 of the treasures passed down by Xing Yuandu's ancestors. One is the bronze seal, and the other is the apricot yellow flag. As long as you hand them over, I, Zhuanyu Heng, will give you sufficient compensation. Otherwise," he was very direct and domineering, and he didn't bother to hide his thoughts. "Otherwise what?" Lin Sun said indifferently. "Otherwise, I can only fight with you. At that time, there will be no compensation." Zhuanyu Heng smiled slightly, revealing his white and neat teeth. "Of course, you are the first in the Tao discussion in Yunzhou. You will have the opportunity to participate in the Tao Discussion Grand Conference in the future. If I snatch those treasures, you will definitely be unconvinced." Lin Sun smiled and said, "So what are you going to do?" Zhuanyu Heng didn't expect that Lin Sun could still laugh at this time. This could only prove that Lin Sun either had the confidence or was not afraid of his identity and threat at all. After a slight hesitation, he said in a low voice, "It's very simple. You take 3 moves from me. As long as you can block them, I will leave immediately and won't bother you anymore. If you can't block them, hand over the 2 treasures. What do you think?" Lin Sun shook his head. "How about this? You and I each make 3 moves. If I can't block them, I will give you the treasures. If you can't block them, you will hand over the treasures in your hand. What do you think?" Zhuanyu Heng narrowed his eyes and his expression became cold. He said, "It sounds fair, but are you sure you want to do this?" Lin Sun said, "You don't dare." Zhuanyu Heng couldn't help laughing. "Interesting, very interesting. Let me see what makes the champion of Yunzhou Tao discussion dare to talk to me like this." His voice was cold and shocked the soul. Lin Sun was even more direct. He directly rose into the sky and stood in the clouds. He said to Zhuanyu Heng, "Cut the crap. Come up and fight." His clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. He was as steady as a towering mountain. "Okay." Zhuanyu Heng's figure broke through the sky like a divine rainbow. His eyes were flowing with golden divine light as he stared at Lin Sun in the distance. "You or me?" Lin Sun said indifferently, "If I start, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to make those 3 moves." The corner of Zhuanyu Heng's mouth twitched imperceptibly. "This guy seems to be more arrogant than me." At the same time, Heng Zhao's face changed slightly. Obviously, they couldn't come to an agreement and were going to fight. Zhuan Heng was a descendant of the Zhuan clan of the far ancient imperial clan and the core successor of the Universe Taoist court, one of the 6 major Taoist courts. No matter who won or lost, offending him was bound to cause unbearable consequences. Heng Xiao couldn't help but be worried because of this. On the other hand, ZK and the other beautiful and charming women couldn't help but reveal ridiculing smiles when they saw this scene. Jean D actually wants to fight the young master? He's obviously a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They knew too well how terrifying Zhuan Heng was. Don't worry. I'll surely not give you the chance to fight. Zhuan Heng suddenly took a step forward as he spoke. His sleeves fluttered while his violet robe fluttered. A wisp of dazzling light shot into the sky from his body and shook the wind and clouds in all directions. In an instant, his imposing aura changed. He was overbearing and arrogant like a sovereign that had descended to the world, and his entire body was drowned by dazzling violet divine light. It just happened to be like a violet sun in the sky. First move. He let out a long howl that shook the 9 heavens like a dragon's roar, and then he suddenly pressed his palm forward. Bang! The violet light of the Tao roiled in the sky and condensed into a palm print that was enormous like a mountain. Its fingers were like peaks, and the striations on the palm were branded with the magnificent and profound energy of the laws. The space near the palm print rumbled and exploded, and it transformed into violent turbulence that collapsed. The surging sound of the Tao surged, and it revealed the vast scene of mountains and rivers exploding and a single hand covering the sky. The grand palm of heaven and earth. It was a supreme inheritance from the heaven and earth Tao court. At this moment, Zhuan Heng had fused it into his Tao domain and deduced it. How formidable! Heng Zhao's heart shook. He'd once seen numerous peerless figures in the Cloud Prefecture Tao discussion, and he'd seen ferocious figures like Lu Dubu, Wu Huang, Xie Yuhua, and Su Muhan. Compared to these people, Zhuan Heng wasn't inferior at all, and he even surpassed them. Crush! The violet palm print that blotted out the sky smashed down from the sky. When looked at from afar, it just seemed like the hand of a god had descended from the heavens. Young Master's control of his own strength has become even more exquisite, and he seems to have attained the peak of perfection. ZK and the other women revealed expressions of fervent admiration. Lin Sun stood towering on the spot without moving in the slightest, and he just stretched out his right arm and pinched the air. Similarly, a palm print condensed into form. It was lofty like a mountain, and it was suffused with a boundless and thick aura as it seethed in the sky. The two of them collided, causing the clouds in the surroundings to instantly explode into pieces and disperse into the surroundings. A terrifying chaotic flow of light of the Tao mixed with thunderous rumbling resounded from the point of collision, and it shook the heavens and the earth. When it vanished into thin air, Lin Sun stood towering on the spot while his entire body was coiled with brilliant light of the Tao, and he had a solitary bearing and was completely unharmed. He actually blocked it. No wonder he has the courage to fight young Master. So it turns out that he's confident. But if he thinks that young Master is only capable of this, then he's gravely mistaken. ZK and the other women revealed surprised expressions, yet they didn't panic and seemed to be very composed, and they were filled with confidence towards Zhuan Heng. If all 3 moves of yours only possess such might, then I'm afraid you'll lose completely this time. In the sky, Lin Sun spoke casually and indifferently. Is that so? Zhuan Heng's gaze was gloomy and cold. He took a deep breath, and the imposing aura emanating from his body changed once more. It was ostentatious like the sun in the sky, and it emanated boundless radiance. Chapter 2009. The second move. Zhuan Heng's body was suffused with purple Taoist light. In front of him, a giant handprint that could cover the sky and the sun was condensed again. However, unlike the first move, this palm seal seemed to contain a world within it, and it surged with the energy of all living beings in the world. Vaguely, there were all kinds of incomparably pure flames burning in it. The fire of faith. That was the embodiment of the power of all living beings operating to the extreme. On the pilgrimage platform of Kunlun ruins, Zhuan Yuheng used the power of all living beings to make him a sage. Now that he had reached the perfection of the Saint King realm, he had obviously integrated the power of all living beings into his own Tao field. This was undoubtedly terrible. Seeing this scene from a distance, Heng Xiao couldn't help being moved and excited. It was no exaggeration to say that in terms of the power of all living beings, no one in the whole cloud state could compare with Zhuan Yuheng. The core descendant of the universe Taoist court is really a legendary genius. Heng Xiao's heart trembled. Boom! Above the void, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Divine clouds flowed and turned into a scene of great destruction. All of this was caused by the power of Zhuan Yuheng's palm. At this moment, all the people in Xuanji sect were alarmed. Countless eyes were looking at this side. Seeing the sky-covering handprint, Lin Sun was calm. He waved his sleeves and flicked his fingers. Clang! 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 Beams of Taishan sword qi swept out, sharp and dazzling, and pierced through the air. With a bang, the first Taishan sword qi exploded, but its power only made the handprint tremble slightly. Then, beams of Taishan sword qi exploded one after another, turning into dazzling light rain all over the sky. This handprint of Zhuan Yuheng was extremely overbearing. With the fire of faith and the Tao field integrated into it, it had the unparalleled momentum of killing gods and Buddhas who stood in its way. Bang! When the last beam of Taishan sword qi exploded, the handprint had already covered the place above Lin Sun's head. The situation was dangerous. But at this time, Lin Sun didn't even look at it and punched towards the sky. Sky-shaking punch. As soon as this punch, which was integrated with Lin Sun's Tao field, appeared, it was like a big abyss swallowing the sky, releasing a frightening devouring power. Rumble, the palm print and the fist energy collided, and it was like two small worlds colliding together, giving rise to an unparalleled torrent of energy. The nearby mountains and rivers trembled, and the many ancient formations scattered throughout the Tao sect of the Four Stars were activated, producing an obscure defensive power. Otherwise, the strength of such a battle would absolutely be able to destroy this incomparably divine mountain and river. This, impossible. Suddenly, a sharp cry sounded. It was ZK and the other girls. They were originally fearless and calm, but at this moment, every one of them revealed a shocked expression and trembled. Because on the battlefield, as Lin Sun's fist force burst out and swept out, Zhuan Yuheng's shocking Mahamudra was not only blocked, but also being worn down and collapsed inch by inch. Within the palm print that seemed to contain Zhou Su, chaos broke out. The wish power of all living beings dimmed, and the flames of faith that were burning seemed to have been swept by a storm, continuously extinguishing in the end. Along with a rumbling sound, the large palm collapsed, and the energy contained within it was completely crushed by the fist energy, causing it to be obliterated and vanish without a trace. The faces of ZK and the other girls were filled with shock, and their expressions froze. This second move was the true embodiment of their young master's strength, but it had still been broken. Not bad at all. A person like you is bound to receive a lot of attention in the Central Earth Tao province, but I'm very curious, why have I never heard of your name before? At this moment, Zhuan Yuheng also restrained his arrogance, and his expression became solemn. He had completely realized that he had encountered an extremely terrifying enemy this time. This surprised him, and also made him very astonished, because in the past, he did not know when such a character with heaven-defying battle strength had appeared in the Cloud Province. Not to mention that in recent years, the name Jin Di was not on the All-Heaven King Sage list at all. The world is vast and there are all sorts of strange things. There are still many things that you don't know, Lin Sun said casually. There's still one last move. If you still can't do anything to me, then it's my turn to make a move. His words caused ZK and the other girls to begin to feel nervous, and they could no longer be as calm as before. Even though they were maidservants by Zhuan Yiheng's side, every single one of them possessed unique and formidable natural talent and resources. Moreover, they'd followed by Zhuan Yiheng's side throughout the years, so they'd experienced a great deal and encountered numerous peerless geniuses of all shapes and sizes. Thus, their gazes were extremely experienced. Although they had only fought twice, they still realized that this Jin Dui was absolutely a ruthless character not inferior to their young master. Taking a deep breath, a touch of determination flashed in Zhuan Yuheng's eyes. Then I'll let you see my real ability. He suddenly hugged the air with his hands, and repeatedly made a gesture in the air. Boom! The originally clear sky was covered with a layer of shimmering deep purple, and the mountains and rivers in all directions fell into a strange silence at this moment. And in front of Zhuan Yuheng, a 3-inch sword qi appeared. It was clean and translucent, as if it had been washed, but it emitted an incomparably grand and peerless sharpness. The most terrifying thing was that with the emergence of this wisp of sword qi, the void of heaven and earth, the momentum of all things in the mountains and rivers were all absorbed and integrated into the sword qi. Clang! The 3-inch sword qi suddenly rose explosively by an inch, and its might rose explosively along with this. On the other hand, the violet color that covered the sky grew even deeper and more terrifying. Shit! Heng Zhao's expression turned grim as he suddenly let out a long howl, and he ordered everyone in the Four Pearl Dao sect to not approach this area arbitrarily. At the same time, he suddenly flicked his sleeve, and the ancient restrictions that covered the nearby area were completely activated and circulated at full force. Heng Zhao finally felt slightly at ease after he did all of this, because Zhuan Yuheng's third move hadn't been truly executed, yet it caused him to feel a chill run down his spine. Without a doubt, this move was definitely Zhuan Yuheng's trump card, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Heng Zhao's scalp went numb because all of this wasn't the end. Clang! The wisp of sword qi before Zhuan Yuheng seemed as if it had been sealed. At this moment it was being pulled out inch by inch, and it was reflected in the heavens and the earth. Every single inch it was pulled out caused its might to rise explosively by a great deal. In the end, even the heavens and the earth dimmed down while Zhuan Yuheng's figure was drowned by the glow of that wisp of sword qi, causing him to become illusory. Everyone who witnessed this scene felt a stabbing pain in their hearts, and their spirits felt like they were being torn apart. This was because the aura released by this wisp of sword qi was simply too terrifying, and it seemed as if it could destroy the heavens and the earth, and destroy everything. This continued until the sword qi condensed to 9 inches. Zhuan Yuheng's face turned pale, but his eyes were as bright as the sun, and he said in a low voice, "This move is called the 9-inch edge of Tao, and it's the embodiment of my lifetime's cultivation. Up until now, I've only used it twice. The first time, I killed 16 enemies of the same realm while I was at the peak of the early stage Saint King realm. The second time, I killed a quasi-emperor not long ago." His voice resounded through the heavens, and it revealed boundless disdain and murderous intent. "And you're the third opponent that made me use this move." When Zhuan Yuheng said this, Heng Zhao's expression had already become extremely solemn, and his heart was filled with shock. Killing a quasi-emperor across a great realm. This was simply unimaginable. ZK and the other girls revealed infatuated expressions. This was the power and influence of their young master, so powerful that they were willing to listen to his orders. Only Lin Sun shook his head at this moment and said with a sneer, "I only know that things don't happen more than 3 times, and this move of yours is destined to be the same." In fact, he was also amazed, and he smelled a dangerous aura. The power and influence of this move even stimulated the qi in his body to run completely, and his fighting spirit was ignited. Zhuan Yuheng said no more and suddenly waved his sleeve. Swish! The 9-inch edge of the sword that condensed in front of him suddenly swept out. It was a simple slash, but wherever it passed, heaven and earth were silently torn apart like a canvas, and a ghastly crack appeared. Even a headmaster like Heng Xiao felt a stabbing pain in his eyes. As for ZK and the other girls, they couldn't even open their eyes, and the divine sense that they emitted felt as if it was being torn apart. This sword gathered the great momentum of the universe, and integrated it into the 9-inch edge of the sword. It seemed simple, but in fact it contained great terror. Almost at the same time, Lin Sun also made his move. From the acupoints of his body, sword chi shot out like a torrent. Dense like a storm, it covered the universe, and intertwined with each other. Indistinctly, it turned into a sword furnace that seemed like it was going to swallow the universe. The 10 directions sword rain turned into a furnace, and it had the power of the Taishan sword scripture, as well as the wonders of the realm of Tao. In an instant, the 9-inch sword chi was covered by the sword furnace, and it was swallowed by it. Clang, 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 a series of collisions that were as dense as thunder could be heard. ZK and the others were so upset that they almost coughed up blood. Even Heng Xiao took a deep breath, and only then did he manage to resolve the terrifying aftermath of the collision of the forces. In the void, the sword furnace was surging, and the dense sword chi swirled in it, fighting against the 9-inch sword chi. They clashed with each other, and the rolling sword chi spread out. The scene was too terrifying. Without a doubt, if there were outsiders involved in the battle, they would definitely suffer unimaginably serious consequences. At best, they would be severely injured, and at worst, their souls would be destroyed. In the intense battle, the 9-inch sword chi gradually dimmed, and became blurry. But at the same time, the Taishan sword chi that had turned into the sword furnace was also crushed, and it shook violently, on the verge of collapse. In the end, the sword furnace exploded, and it turned into a rain of light that spread out. But before Zhuan Yuheng could rejoice, his 9-inch sword chi also collapsed, dissipating in the torrent of power. In an instant, Zhuan Yuheng's pupils shrank, and his hands and feet turned cold. He was stunned. The 9-inch sword chi, the extreme manifestation of his cultivation, had once allowed him to create the magnificent feat of killing a quasi-emperor across a great realm, and the elders of his sect were full of praise. But at this moment, the ultimate move that he was most proud of, most confident, and most proud of had been blocked by someone else. And his opponent was a person of the same realm that he had never even heard of before. All of this was like a heavy blow, and it made Zhuan Yuheng feel incredulous, and his head was buzzing. Soon, the smoke and dust dispersed, and the sword chi disappeared. When the vision and divine senses of ZK and the other girls recovered, and they saw Lin Sun standing in the clouds, alive and well, without any injuries on his body, all of them widened their eyes. Chapter 2010. The void was in disorder, and the remaining breath of destruction was reverberating. But there was silence in the field. The power of the first of Zhuan Yuheng's 3 moves made Heng Xiao believe that Zhuan Yuheng's foundation was no weaker than that of Lu Dubu and Wu Huang. The power of the second move amazed Heng Xiao. He believed that no one in Cloud State could match Zhuan Yuheng in the control of the power of all living beings. As for the power of the third move, Heng Xiao was shocked, because this move had the power to threaten the realm of quasi-emperors. The 9-inch Taoist edge, with its sharpness and extreme power, was enough to make all living beings in the world tremble. But in the end it was resolved. At this moment, Heng Xiao felt dizzy and dizzy. The young people nowadays were simply more incredible than the other. Before, Heng Xiao had seen the shocking scene of Lin Sun killing 6 quasi-emperors of the Hellion clan by himself. At that time, he was so shocked that he almost lost his mind. And now there was one more Zhuan Yuheng. But relatively speaking, the impact of Zhuan Yuheng's attack was far less than when Lin Sun killed the 6 quasi-emperors. ZK and other girls didn't know about Lin Sun's previous achievements. At this moment, they were so shocked that their faces turned pale and they were tongue-tied. They probably couldn't imagine how there was anyone in the world who could block Zhuan Yuheng's strongest attack. Unexpected, after a while, Zhuan Yuheng woke up from his stupor. His expression was uncertain as he stared at Lin Sun in the distance with surprise in his eyes. Lin Sun was as calm as before. He brushed his clothes that were blown up by the wind and said, "You're already very good. At least the third move made me feel a little threatened." Lin Sun's understatement made Zhuan Yuheng's mind tumble again. Just some threats? Now it's my turn. Hearing Lin Sun's words, Zhuan Yuheng finally couldn't hold back his inner unwillingness and said, "You can block 3 of my moves. Do you think I can't block 3 of yours? Then give it a try." Lin Sun stepped forward in the air, his robe fluttering. He pinched his fingers and a big pale yellow seal emerged. The seal of all living beings. It was also a kind of talent that gathered the will of all living beings. When it was cast by Lin Sun, this seal seemed to carry a world to kill. Zhuan Yu let out a cold snort and leaped forward like a sovereign descending upon the world, swinging his fist to meet Zhuan Yu head-on. Boom! The sky collapsed and the earth caved in. The mountains and rivers dimmed. Amidst the rumbling sounds of collision, the seal of all living beings cracked and dissipated. Zhuan Yuheng's body swayed and he laughed loudly. "You are only SOSO. Lin Sun nodded and stepped forward again, still displaying the seal of all living beings. However, the might of this strike was completely different. It was as if there were all living beings devoutly chanting sutras in the world of a great abyss, intending to devour Zhou Su and refine him. Zhuan Yuheng's figure stiffened, and then he suddenly let out a long howl. His figure was like a violet sun in the sky as he executed his Dao domain. A nation of faith gathered. Countless figures knelt between heaven and earth, piously praying. The flames of faith gathered together, burning fiercely. When Lin Sun's all living beings seal attacked, the kingdom of faith suddenly shook violently, and a scene of destruction appeared within it. The world was overturned, all things were sinking, and all living beings were screaming miserably. It didn't take long for it to disappear. Zhuan Yuheng coughed up blood violently, his face pale. This made ZK and the other girls' hearts clench, and they all looked anxious and worried. "Young master, Hia was obviously injured. This is already the second move, but I still blocked it." But Zhuan Yuheng laughed arrogantly. Although he was injured, he still looked disdainful and confident. "Childish." Lin Sun smiled indifferently, neither sad nor happy, and stepped forward. Boom! The seal of all living beings condensed again. Unlike before, when this big seal soared into the sky rolled violently, as if it was about to collapse, and the nearby void collapsed and cracked like glass. The big seal seemed to gather the will of God, resounding with the sound of Tao, and had the momentum to shock the ages. ZK and the other girls watched from afar, and their souls felt as if they were about to leave their bodies. They were so frightened that they trembled all over. Even Heng Zhao's body was cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He couldn't help but think of the scene when Lin Sun killed the 6 quasi-emperors. Lin Sun was also so powerful, so nature-defying. Zhuan Yuheng's face changed completely. This blow not only made him feel danger, but also the smell of death. Under the instinctive stimulation of his body, his pores stood on end, and his state of mind was shocked. Without hesitation, he used almost all the strength of his body to display the 9-inch Tao edge again. A ray of sword light as bright as the sun pierced the sky. Crack! But in just a moment, the sword light seemed to hit the unshakable Tianshan mountain. Its edge was thwarted, and it broke directly from the middle, making an explosive sound. Zhuan Yuheng's body trembled, and he coughed up blood again. He looked horrified. The shadow cast by the seal of all living beings had already submerged his whole body. At this moment, he felt that there was no way to escape, and there was no way to avoid it. Boom! The void shattered, and the seal of all living beings crushed the void. The sun, the moon, the mountains, and the rivers, and the latitude and longitude of heaven and earth all became chaotic. Zhuan Yuheng tried his best to avoid it, but it was like being in the eye of a storm, and the terrifying devouring and suppression force firmly restrained his whole body. Seeing the seal of all living beings approaching, Zhuan Yuheng's eyes were bloodshot, and the strong unwillingness in his heart made him want to fight desperately. Boom! The seal of all living beings finally descended, and in the next moment, Zhuan Yuheng's whole body was suppressed from the void, and he smashed heavily into the Jade Shu Peak. As the ground shook, he let out a roar and tried to stand up. But how terrifying was the power of the seal of all living beings! It could be said to be Lin Sun's full-force attack. Not to mention Zhuan Yuheng, even a quasi-emperor would not be able to resist it. Crack, crack! Zhuan Yuheng's body bent under the pressure, and at this moment it was unknown how many bones in his body were broken, and his skin cracked and bled. The most terrifying thing was that the devouring power released by the seal of all living beings, while suppressing him, was also plundering and refining his essence, qi, and spirit. Young Master! ZK and the others were so shocked that their souls almost left their bodies. Just as they were about to go forward to rescue him, they were reprimanded by Heng Shao. If you go forward, you will only harm him. Don't worry, as long as he admits defeat, little friend Jean D will definitely not kill him. Boom! At this moment, the seal of all living beings slowly pressed down, and the entire Jade Shu Peak shook violently. And Zhuan Yuheng was in an even worse state. He was seeing stars, and blood flowed out of his 7 apertures. Blue veins popped on his forehead, and his body showed signs of cracking. He was about to be forced to kneel on the ground. If you don't admit defeat, there are only 2 outcomes. Either kneel on the ground or die. No matter which outcome, I'm afraid you will not be able to accept it. In the distance, Lin Sun's indifferent voice sounded. Don't even think about it. Zhuan Yuheng roared. These 3 words revealed endless anger and unwillingness. His body was steaming with divine brilliance, and he was desperately resisting, as if he was burning himself. ZK and the others were in a panic, and their minds were filled with terror. Whether their young master kneeled on the ground or died, they could not accept it either. Crack, crack! Zhuan Yuheng's body was pressed lower and lower, and his bones were constantly cracking. Blood was gurgling out of his pores, as if he had turned into a bloody man. But even so, he was still holding on, and gritting his teeth, as if he would rather die than admit defeat. At this moment, Heng Shao looked anxious. He was also worried that if Lin Sun was careless, he would kill Zhuan Yu. In that case, the consequences would be too serious. At this moment, the seal of all living beings suddenly stopped, and then silently dissipated in the air. Bang! The pressure suddenly disappeared, and Zhuan Yuheng's body, which was under extreme pressure, suddenly staggered and fell on a rock. His hands and feet were twitching, and his body was bathed in blood. He looked miserable, and he was gasping for breath. Heng Shao heaved a long sigh of relief. ZK and the other girls also relaxed at the same time. Their bodies had long been soaked in cold sweat. The scene just now had caused incomparable suffering and torture to them. Although your strength is a little weak, your bones are very hard. This time you have blocked it, Lin Sun said. His clothes were neat and tidy, and he was not injured at all. Compared to Zhuan Yuheng's miserable state, it was like the difference between clouds and mud. Heng Shao also walked over and said with a smile, although they only used 3 moves in this battle, it was incomparably marvelous. Without a doubt, the 2 of them are the most dazzling figures in the world. Now that they're evenly matched, it's truly an eye-opener for me. ZK and the others hurriedly ran over, and they fed Zhuan Yuheng the divine medicine and wiped off the blood. All of them were distressed. Get out of the way! Zhuan Yuheng shouted coldly and pushed ZK and the other girls away. He took a deep breath and stood up with difficulty. He looked at Lin Sun and said, "This battle I lost. I, Zhuan Yuheng, don't need your sympathy, and I won't go back on my words. As he said, he waved his sleeve, and a bronze box swept out and was thrown to Lin Sun. This is the treasure I lost to you. Take it. His voice was resolute, and his attitude was resolute. This surprised Lin Sun. He couldn't help but look at Zhuan Yuheng and said, I didn't expect that there is such a person like you in heaven and earth Taoism court. Zhuan Yuheng snorted coldly, and then said in a hoarse voice, ZK, let's go. ZK and the other girls hurriedly stepped forward, activated their spiritual power, and left with Zhuan Yuheng. However, halfway there, Zhuan Yuheng suddenly stopped and said, Looking at you reminds me of a person. Back then, when I was consecrated as a sage, that person surpassed me with absolute superiority. Even now I still feel unconvinced. You are very similar to him. When the Tao Discussion Festival begins, I will fight with you again. With that, the group of them gradually moved further away. Heng Xiao was stunned. Watching them leave, he couldn't help sighing with emotion. Zhuan Yuheng deserves to be the core descendant of heaven and earth Taoism court. He has a great spirit that ordinary people can't reach. Lin Sun said, Not all the descendants of heaven and earth Taoism court are like this. After thinking about it, he added, Of course, Zhuan Yuheng is really extraordinary. At least, even when he was in a desperate situation, he didn't use his treasure. Lin Sun was very clear that Zhuan Yuheng must have a trump card, such as the bronze box he gave him, which contained a terrifying treasure at the level of imperial weapon. In the battle just now, if Zhuan Yuheng used such a treasure, he would definitely not be suppressed by Lin Sun like this. Obviously, seeing that Lin Sun didn't use his treasure, he disdained to do so. The rarest thing was that he was a person who was willing to admit defeat. He would rather lose the imperial weapon than lose his pride. Chapter 2011. From this chapter on, Zhuan Yuheng was changed to Zhuan Suheng. Zhuan Xuheng left. He was willing to accept his loss and left without any hesitation. Heng Xiao felt relaxed. From the boldness and strength of character that Zhuan Xuheng had displayed, he would not bear a grudge against the 4 Stars Dao sect after experiencing such a great defeat. After chatting with Lin Sun for a while, Heng Xiao also left. From beginning to end, he did not inquire what kind of sovereign weapon was sealed in the bronze box left by Zhuan Suheng. Lin Sun returned to the cave residence and opened the bronze box as soon as possible. What entered his eyes was an expanse of silver divine radiance that was gentle like water, and it was brilliant, bright, and carried a shocking divine aura. A jade disc lay silently within the bronze box. It was translucent and crystalline like snow, and it revealed a flawless feeling of perfection. Looking carefully, there were 2 strange Taoist symbols in the jade plate. They were like a pair of swimming fish, dividing into yin and yang, and rotating with each other. In a trance, Lin Sun felt his mind tremble, as if he was in a strange world. This world was indescribably chaotic. Countless chaotic and vast traces of the Grand Tao surged into appearance, and they were like countless wriggling earthworms that formed a dense and boundless expanse. Every trace of the Great Way contained a wonderful Taoist sense, describing the essence of the Great Way. However, it was too fragmented and chaotic, making people dizzy and almost coughing up blood. With Lin Sun's current cultivation and level of understanding of the Great Way, he was also upset and confused when he saw this scene. Even if he looked at it for a long time, his state of mind was restless and there were signs of collapse. The countless traces of the Great Way were too chaotic and messy. At this time, a jade plate appeared, bright and clear, showing a sign of perfection. As it rotated, 2 strange symbols like swimming fish flickered, gathering the countless fragmented traces of the Great Way and integrating them into the jade plate. Then, an amazing scene appeared. The chaotic traces of the Great Way were sorted out and classified. Then, with the rotation of the jade plate, they were constantly deduced and showed the most essential essence. Boom! At this point, Lin Sun's mind was shocked. These scenes disappeared in his mind, but Lin Sun had already understood the origin of the sovereign weapon in front of him. The formless Great Way. The Great Way was formless, and the form was born from the heart. Anatta, formless, anatta, emptiness. Simply speaking, the Grand Tao was shapeless and nameless, and the Grand Tao cultivators comprehended were the traces of the Grand Tao they saw in their mental state. On the other hand, the traces of the Grand Tao that every single cultivator saw were bound to be completely different. If one's mental state was able to reveal the ethereal state of selflessness and formlessness, then one would be able to comprehend the most essential profundity of the Grand Tao. The Void Great Tao Plate was an Emperor artifact that could help cultivators comprehend and deduce the Great Tao. Understanding this, Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. He realized that although the Void Tao Plate wasn't a weapon for battle, it was marvelous and unparalleled. Deducing the traces of the Grand Tao and comprehending the essence of the Grand Tao was tantamount to helping cultivators comprehend and understand the secrets of the Grand Tao in the universe. With this treasure, why should I worry about not being able to bring my Tao domain to a perfected state? For the first time, Lin Sun realized the value of the Void Great Way Plate and was amazed in his heart. If he hadn't seen it with his own 2 eyes, he would have never imagined that such a strange and miraculous Emperor artifact actually existed in this world. Lin Sun didn't dare to underestimate Zhuan Shuheng, who was willing to hand over this Emperor artifact in order to preserve his strength of character. It was one thing to be willing to concede defeat, but it was difficult for an Emperor to hand over such a miraculous Emperor artifact so resolutely. So far, Lin Sun had 5 Emperor artifacts, namely the Infinite Bottle, the Lamp of No Blame, the Seal of No Life, the Flag of No Direction, and the Void Plate. In other words, Lin Sun already had 5 of the 9 Emperor artifacts of Kunlun. After carefully playing and looking at the Void Great Way Plate for a long time, Lin Sun put it away and opened the huge bronze box again. In this box, in addition to the 2 treasures, the Seal of No Life and the Flag of No Direction, there was a piece of gray soil and a piece of decayed divine wood. Lin Sun stared at them for a long time, but he couldn't find anything. Moreover, he couldn't sense the aura fluctuations of these 2 treasures even with his divine awareness. Suddenly, he thought of an old man. Clatter with a wave of Lin Sun's sleeve, the divine cultivation ancestral tree appeared out of thin air. This divine cultivation ancestral tree had once traveled the starry sky with the sky-splitting emperor, so it was experienced and knowledgeable. Moreover, its body was a type of divine wood. As soon as it appeared, it cried out excitedly, "My God! Is this the chaotic life soil?" Its voice was filled with disbelief. Chaotic life soil. Lin Sun was shocked in his heart. All those years ago, the spirit of the insignificant Bao Wu Ke had once said something. The 4 ancient divine woods, Fusang, Kanwu, Jianmu, and Kunwu, were all born from the source of chaos, and they naturally contained Tao markings that belonged to the source of chaos. According to rumor, so long as one gathered all the soul origin roots of these 4 types of divine trees and nurtured them with the chaotic life soil, 5-colored wondrous earth, clear muddy star soul sand, and primeval chi water, then one would be able to develop a sapling of the chaotic quintessence tree. At that time, so long as the seedling was nurtured within the body, it would be of incredible help to the cultivation of the Emperor Tao. According to what Wu Ke said, in the battle for the Emperor realm, whoever was able to control a chaotic source tree was equivalent to possessing the ability to comprehend the laws of chaos and control chaotic Tao energy, and it was far from something other Emperor realm figures could compare to. During these past few years, Lin Sun had gathered the soul origin root of the Fusang divine wood in the Sunset Valley that the Golden Crow clan resided. In the Immortality Peach secret realm of the Kunlun ruins, he'd gathered a piece of 5-color wondrous soil. At this moment, the divine cultivation ancestral tree actually said that the gray and hazy soil within the bronze chest was actually the chaotic life soil. How could Lin Sun not be shocked? Is it really this treasure? He couldn't help but ask. The divine cultivation ancestral tree was already excited to the point its branches trembled, and it danced with joy. It's this treasure. Doesn't it look very inconspicuous and without any intelligence? That's because the chaotic life soil has always been like this. Only by watering it with primordial chi water would it reveal its true appearance. As it spoke, it exclaimed with admiration once more, and it seemed to have never imagined where Lin Sun had found this treasure. Because a very long time ago, for the sake of searching for this treasure, it and Skysplit had traveled the starry sky, and they'd searched for countless years, yet they were unable to find it in the end. Whoosh! Lin Sun waved his sleeve and directly put away the palm-sized chaotic life soil. He was worried that the divine cultivation ancestral tree would become excited and swallow this treasure. Sure enough, the divine cultivation ancestral tree begged, "Little friend, can you share some with me? Just a fingernail is enough." Lin Sun refused flatly, "We'll talk about this in the future. Now, take a look at what this is." He pointed at the piece of rotten divine wood. The divine cultivation ancestral tree was obviously very unwilling, and its expression was filled with hidden bitterness. However, when it saw the piece of rotten divine wood, its body instantly trembled. This thing seems to be extremely similar to the legendary builder tree. The divine cultivation ancestral tree was completely shocked. The builder tree, a divine tree that's said to be able to communicate with the myriad of worlds in the heavens. It was born from the chaotic ancestral root, and every leaf contains a universe within, and every root can lead to a universe. The ancient emperors called the builder tree the heavenly tree. There was once a group of great emperors who climbed this tree from the bottom to the top for the sake of searching for the secrets of the chaotic ancestral root. And amongst the 4 great divine trees, the builder tree is the most mysterious. Lin Sun felt a surge of emotions when he heard this. The builder tree could communicate with the myriad of worlds in the heavens. 1 leaf, 1 world, 1 root, 1 universe. There had once been emperors who climbed it to search for the secrets of the chaotic ancestral root. This was undoubtedly too unbelievable. What a pity, what a pity! This piece of divine wood should be a fragment of the builder tree, but it has long decayed, and the Tao patterns and spirituality within it have all been corroded. Immediately after, the divine cultivation ancestral tree beat its chest and stamped its feet, looking extremely distressed. If not for this, just a fragment like this would be able to make emperors fight over it crazily. Lin Sun was startled. He calmed down from his excitement and said, "You mean, this piece of wood no longer has any value?" The divine cultivation ancestral tree nodded and sighed. "The decay is too severe. In the end, it has become a piece of waste." Lin Sun thought for a while and put it away. If there was a chance in the future, he wanted to try and see if he could repair this piece of rotten builder tree. At the same time, on a beautiful treasure ship that was sailing towards the Central Plains, Zhuanshu Heng was healing his injuries and was silent. The defeat this time had also caused a great blow to him. "Young master, you don't have to be discouraged. When we return to the Central Plains, you only need to leak the news that Jean D possesses the lifeless seal and the directionless flag. There will be people hunting him down," an incomparably beautiful woman said in a low voice. Zhuanshu Heng raised his head, his eyes cold and frightening, and said, "If you dare to say another word, I will immediately pull out your tendons and peel off your skin." The beautiful woman trembled all over and her face turned pale. Zhuanshu Heng ignored her and glanced at the other women, and said, "Not a single word about what happened today, do you understand?" All the women's expressions changed, and they hurriedly nodded in agreement. Zhuanshu Heng took a deep breath and said word by word, "Whether it is the void plate or other sovereign weapons, I will win them back myself. There is no need for you to meddle at all." The women became more and more frightened. The next morning, when Lin Sun woke up from his cultivation, he received news from Heng Shao that the founder of Xuanji Taoist sect, Boyazi, had returned to the sect. Immediately, Lin Sun and Heng Shao entered the back mountain forbidden area again. Little, when Boyazi, who was thin and dressed in a gray robe, saw Lin Sun, he opened his mouth to call him martial uncle, but in the end it was changed to little friend. After Lin Sun stepped forward to greet him, he asked, "Is it done?" Boyazi nodded with a smile. "I have arranged for the Jiang clan of the sovereign family. If you are in a hurry, you can go there now." "Then let's go." Lin Sun made a decision. "Okay." Boyazi was not a sloppy person. He immediately took Lin Sun and left Xuanji Taoist sect quietly without alarming anyone. Lin Sun was not worried about encountering any disturbances along the way with a big shot who had become an emperor in ancient times. In fact, it was indeed so. Chapter 2012. The Jiang River, one of the 8 major rivers in the primordial world, was located at the border of Jianjia province. The Jiang clan, an imperial clan, was located at the upper reaches of the Jiang River. On the bank of Jiangshui River, Boyazi and Lin Sun swam upstream like a mighty and boundless river rolling and roaring. The Jiang clan is a descendant of the immemorial Emperor of Flame. Although the clan suffered a great loss in the Battle of Emperors, their foundation is still not to be underestimated. On the way, Boyazi introduced the Jiang clan to Lin Sun. Jiang Xinglin, the current patriarch of the Jiang clan, is a guy with 1 foot in the emperor realm. He can be called a half-step emperor and is stronger than an emperor-to-be. Apart from Jiang Xinglin, the clan has many emperor-to-be and hundreds of thousands of clansmen. Of course, that's not important. What's important is that the Jiang Xingxue you want to meet is the elder sister of Jiang Xinglin, the patriarch of the Jiang clan. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. "So, if I want to meet senior Jiang Xingxue, I can't avoid Jiang Xinglin?" Boyazi smiled and said, "Young friend, Jiang Xinglin might be the clan head, but he's not the most difficult to deal with. The most difficult to deal with are the several martial emperors overseeing the clan." Several emperors. Even Lin Sun's heart trembled when he heard this. Within a clan, there were several martial emperors. This was the foundation of the immemorial imperial clan? In comparison, the Yu clan, where Yu Qingyang was from, was a notch lower. After all, one was an immemorial emperor clan, and the other was an ancient emperor clan. Fortunately, I asked an old friend to help me get in touch with an emperor realm ancestor of the Jiang clan, Jiang Rui. It shouldn't be difficult for me to meet Jiang Xingxue on this trip to the Jiang clan, said Yi Qingyu. Boyazi said with a smile. One should know that Boyazi was also an emperor, but when facing the Jiang clan, he had to ask someone to establish a relationship. The reason was that Jiang Xingxue's identity was too sensitive in the Jiang clan. After the law battle of the emperors ended, the Panwu, Qiankuan, and untainted Lan Dao courts, in order to completely eradicate the influence of Fangtsuan Mountain, worked together with some other major forces to search for and capture forces related to Fangtsuan Mountain. Due to his close relationship with Mount Heart's successor Xian Kong, Jiang Xingxue was also implicated and was seen as someone related to Mount Heart. The imperial Jiang clan had no choice but to imprison Jiang Xingxue as a sinner of the clan, because if they didn't do this, then the Jiang clan would definitely suffer unimaginable losses. Although Jiang Xingxue was seen as a criminal and imprisoned, he still managed to keep his life. However, these were all matters of the past from the ancient times, and only some seniors of the Jiang clan knew about these secrets. However, they would not speak of these matters to prevent the news from leaking out and stirring up more trouble. However, as a result, the current imperial clan, the Jiang clan, only knew that Jiang Xingxue was the eternal sinner of the clan, but they did not know the reason behind it. As a result, they all viewed Jiang Xingxue as a disgrace, and were unwilling to mention anything related to her. Therefore, Boyazi and other emperors had tried their best to get such an opportunity for Lin Sun to meet Jiang Xingxue. If Lin Sun went by himself, He was bound to be rejected. "Thank you so much for your help this time," said Lin Sun. Boyazi quickly waved his hand and said, "Junior uncle, please don't be so polite with me." As the two of them conversed, they were already able to see a towering crimson-red mountain range in the distance, and it lay across the extremely distant horizon. It was like a coiling fire dragon, winding endlessly, which was quite spectacular. That's Danxia Holy Mountain, located in the upper reaches of Jiang River. It is said that the ancient Yan Emperor proved his Tao and became an emperor on this mountain. Since then, Danxia Holy Mountain has become the ancestral land of the imperial Jiang clan and has been living there for generations. Boyazi said with emotion. The ancient Yan Emperor. That was a legendary figure that possessed remarkable abilities and could be said to be a supreme figure. Just like the primeval White Emperor, he was ranked amongst the primeval 5 emperors. Danxia Holy Mountain was the place where he proved his Tao. It could be called a first-class blessed land in the primordial world. This mountain is covered in rosy clouds and suffused with divinity, and its might is like a dragon. It really is a rare place of treasure. Lin Sun nodded. After a while, in front of a gate of Danxia Holy Mountain. "Who is here?" A strong man guarding the gate shouted. Boyazi didn't say anything. He waved his sleeve, and a fiery red jade token flew out and passed it to the guard. The strong man of the Jiang clan looked at it respectfully and said, "Senior, please wait a moment." He turned around and quickly entered the gate to report. Yes. It wasn't long before a wave of hearty laughter resounded from within the sect, and then a rugged middle-aged man who wore a fiery robe and had hair that burned like flames teleported out from within. The aura that flowed throughout his body transformed into numerous dazzling divine chains of the laws that covered the heavens and the earth, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Lin Sun held his breath. From a distance, the middle-aged man in the fiery robe was like a volcano with the power to burn the sky and destroy the world. "Martial uncle, this man is Jiang Rui, an old monster at the first level of the Emperor realm. But he doesn't know my real identity." Boyazi said to Lin Sun while walking up with a smile, "I'm sorry to bother you this time." Jiang Rui, who was dressed in a fiery robe, laughed out loud. "What are you talking about, fellow Taoist?" Boyazi nodded and followed Jiang Rui into the mountain gate with Lin Sun. Clatter, the formation rippled. When Lin Sun's vision became clear again, he saw a fairyland-like scene. Tens of thousands of meters tall spirit mountains towered into the clouds. Beside them, waterfalls fell from above like the Milky Way falling into the 9th heaven. Every single spirit mountain was coiled by immortal radiance and enshrouded by divine radiance. They flowed with multicolored light and were extremely magnificent. Boom! A group of fiery beasts galloped through the mountains. Their bodies were like burning hills, radiating light and letting out thunderous roars. In the distance, there were even immortal birds and spirit beasts wandering around. On the rocks of the spirit mountains, ancient herbs could be seen everywhere, emitting essence and fragrance. There were also rare divine trees, ancient vines, and stamens bearing strange fruit. As far as the eye could see, there was a magnificent scene of divine beauty, overflowing and picturesque beauty everywhere. No wonder it was the place where the Yan Emperor proved his Tao. Lin Sun sighed in his heart. "This way please, Taoism peer." Jiang Rui led the way. When Lin Sun followed his gaze, he saw a towering ancient city floating in the air between the mountains in the distance. It was full of fire and chaotic air. Lin Sun was shocked. This was definitely the most majestic city he had ever seen. Located between the mountains, above the void, Lin Sun felt that he was as small as an ant. Above the giant city, there was a gate tower with an ancient plaque hanging. It was flowing with divine light and filled with mist. 3 words could be vaguely seen: Yan Emperor City. This was the ancestral grounds of the Jiang clan, and it was personally created by the primeval Flame Emperor. Generations of descendants of the Jiang clan resided within it. This city connected the sky above and the mountains below. It looked like it was sitting high in the sky, overlooking all living beings. Led by Jiang Rui, Lin Sun and the others attracted many curious gazes along the way, but they didn't encounter any trouble and entered the Yan Emperor City smoothly. Inside the Yan Emperor City, it was a different scene. Instead of row upon row of buildings, there were well-proportioned paradises. Moreover, the city led to the nearby mountains, which were all connected by white jade stairs. Together, they outlined a marvelous scene of crisscrossing paths and paradises. Lin Sun and Boyazi were arranged to stay in a verdant paradise. Nearby, there were pine and cypress forests, green bamboos dancing, and streams winding through. Spiritual Qi curled up. Jiang Rui said, "Taoism peer, wait here for a moment. I'll make some arrangements and then lead you to the forbidden area of the clan." "Thank you, Taoism peer." Boyazi cupped his hands in obeisance. After he sent Jiang Rui off with his gaze, Boyazi said via voice transmission, "Little Martial Uncle, this place is already a restricted area of the Imperial clan, the Jiang clan. Every single move we make might be noticed by them, so we must not give ourselves away." Lin Sun nodded. Time passed little by little. After waiting for 30 minutes, Jiang Rui still didn't appear. Boyazi couldn't help frowning. Did something unexpected happen? At this moment Jiang Rui, dressed in a fiery robe and with burning hair, hurried over with a touch of shame. "Taoism peer, I'm afraid I can't help you this time." Lin Sun and Boyazi looked at each other, and their hearts sank. "Taoism peer, did something unexpected happen?" Boyazi asked. Jiang Rui's expression was uncertain. He looked at Boyazi for a moment and said, "Taoism peer, if you trust me, don't ask about this again. You'd better leave now." How could Boyazi be willing to leave like this? He frowned and said, "Taoism peer, can you make an exception? You can't let me come here for nothing, can you?" Jiang Rui shook his head. "There's no turning back." Boyazi was about to say something, but Lin Sun shook his head. He immediately suppressed his displeasure and said, "Well, we'll leave first." Jiang Rui wanted to say something but finally sighed softly, "I'll give you an answer later." Boyazi didn't want to listen anymore. Anyway, he was also an Emperor realm figure. Now he came from thousands of miles away only to be rejected, which made him extremely dissatisfied. However, just as Boyazi and Lin Sun were about to leave, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded, "Since you're here, why are you in a hurry to leave?" Whoosh! A tall and old figure appeared out of thin air. He was dressed in a jade robe, with black hair like ink and a pair of eyes surging with terrible divine flames. He stood in front of the road, exuding power like a supreme god. Boyazi narrowed his eyes and subconsciously shielded Lin Sun behind him. Jiang Rui's face changed slightly and he said, "Seventh uncle, why are you here?" This man was Jiang Yutong, one of the several emperors of the Jiang family, an old man who had become an emperor as early as ancient times. Not only was his cultivation horrifying, but his seniority was also frighteningly high. Jiang Rui, an Emperor realm figure, was only his junior. "This is Yan Emperor City, the territory of the Jiang family. Why can't I come?" Jiang Yutong's voice was cold, and he looked at Boyazi and Lin Sun behind him with unkind eyes. Chapter 2013. Jiang Yutong made no attempt to conceal his hostility as soon as he arrived. Lin Sun's heart sank. He never expected that even with Boyazi's painstaking help, there would still be such twists and turns. "Don't worry, junior uncle. I'm here." Boyazi's eyes suddenly turned cold as he transmitted his voice to Jiang Yutong. "What do you mean?" Boyazi had his own pride as an Emperor realm practitioner. As early as 100,000 years ago in the ancient times, he had already become an emperor. He fought in the starry sky and founded a sect on his own, allowing the Xuanji Taoism sect to exist to this day and become the third most powerful orthodoxy in Cloud State. Perhaps it was far inferior to the Jiang clan in terms of foundation, but Boyazi had absolute confidence in his own combat capability. He was respectful and submissive in front of Lin Sun, but as an antique who had lived for more than 100,000 years, how could Boyazi lower his head in front of the Jiang clan? Of course, this was the territory of the Jiang clan. Once he started fighting, he was doomed to die. But Boyazi was sure that Jiang clan would not dare to fight him to the death. In that case, even if the Jiang clan could defeat him in the end, they would have to pay a heavy price. This was the foundation of an Emperor Realm practitioner. What do you mean? I'd like to ask you what you're here for. Jiang Yutong looked indifferent. He ignored Lin Sun and stared at Boyazi. Seventh uncle, fellow practitioner Yunya is not our enemy. Jiang Rui said hurriedly. Yunya was the pseudonym used by Boyazi. It's not up to you whether he's our enemy or not. Jiang Yutong's tone was very stiff as he continued to stare at Boyazi. You're a martial emperor, yet you've suddenly come to see a sinner of my clan. If I'm not wrong, there are only two possibilities. Boyazi grunted in acknowledgement and said, Tell me about it. First, you're sent by the enemy of Mount Heart sect to harm the sinner of our clan. Boyazi and Lin Sun both frowned at Jiang Yutong's words. They were also surprised by this speculation. Could it be that after so many years, the forces represented by the Panwu, Untainted, and Qiankuan Dao courts had not given up on killing Jiang Xingchue? Secondly, you were sent here by the remnants of Mount Innerheart. When Jiang Yutong mentioned the second possibility, both Boyazi and Lin Sun were shocked. What a keen insight this old guy had. But when they heard the word surviving scum, it caused them to feel a wave of displeasure in their hearts. How is this possible? Jiang Rui's expression changed slightly. He and Boyazi did not have much of a relationship, and the reason why they knew each other was because an old friend had acted as a go-between. He had never thought that there was a problem with Boyazi's identity. Why is it impossible? Why was the Star Sparrow imprisoned? Isn't it all because of that arrogant Xian Kong of Mount Innerheart? Jiang Yutong's expression was gloomy. If we hadn't been dragged down by Xian Kong all those years ago, how could our Jiang clan have suffered such a great loss in the Dao battles of the emperors? His voice was filled with resentment that had been accumulated for countless years. And now an emperor wants to come out and see the Star Sparrow. Don't you think it's strange? Jiang Rui's body stiffened and his expression changed again. The way he looked at Boyazi had also changed. He could not help but ask, Are you the enemies of Mount Innerheart, or the remnants of Mount Innerheart? Boyazi immediately realized that things had become troublesome. Originally, he thought that it was just a meeting with Jiang Xingchue, and it was not a big deal. Who would have thought that the old monsters of the Jiang clan would all be extremely concerned about this matter? At this moment, Lin Sun, who had been silent all this while, walked out and said, Xian Kong is my senior brother. Jiang Yutong and Jiang Rui's pupils shrank upon hearing this. Both of them knew Xian Kong too well, and they had met him many times before the Dao battles of the emperors of the ancient era broke out because of Jiang Xingchu. At that time, Xian Kong was the most dazzling ultimate saint king of the younger generation. He was regarded as invincible among those in the same realm, and he was generous and chivalrous. At that time, Jiang Yutong and Jiang Rui were also the best of the younger generation with outstanding talents, but they were far inferior to Xian Kong in terms of reputation and fame. After Xian Kong and Jiang Xingchu met and fell in love, the Emperor Jiang clan was happy to see it happen, and even began to arrange a marriage for the two. But it was also at this time that the Dao battles of the emperors broke out. From then on, everything changed. At this moment, when Lin Sun said that he was Xian Kong's junior brother, the two emperors, Jiang Yutong and Jiang Rui, felt their hearts churn. This person was really a remnant of Mount Innerheart. No wonder, so it turns out that you're here because of your senior brother Xian Kong. Ha! How many years has it been? Only now did Mount Innerheart remember that there's a Jiang Xingxue in our clan? Jiang Yutong laughed. His expression was gloomy, filled with hatred and resentment. Jiang Rui looked up and down at Lin Sun and said in a low voice, "Peerless Saint King Realm, when did the descendants of Fangtsuan Mountain become so weak? Is it really because the orthodoxy of Fangtsuan Mountain was completely eradicated after the Taoism Battle of Emperors, leaving only some weak remnants? You two watch your words." Boyazi's face darkened. Lin Sun had already revealed his identity, so there was no need to hide anything now. Whether it was a blessing or a curse, they could only face it head-on. "You want us to watch our words?" Jiang Yutong's beard and hair fluttered in the wind as he sneered. "If it wasn't for Mount Innerheart, our Emperor Jiang clan wouldn't have been so badly injured that we still can't recover. If it wasn't for Mount Innerheart, our clan wouldn't have been treated with hostility and suppressed by the untainted land, Qiankuan and Panwu Dao courts. Also, if it wasn't for Xian Kong, Xingxue wouldn't have been imprisoned for nearly 100,000 years. Now that you're here, you want us to watch our words? Do you deserve it?" After asking a few questions in succession, Jiang Yutong's face had already turned livid with rage. He was an Emperor realm figure, and his mental state was extremely firm since a long time ago. However, he seemed to be extremely agitated at this moment. Obviously, this matter was a knot in his heart. Jiang Rui's expression was gloomy as well. Boyazi took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Everyone has a conclusion in their hearts about who's right and who's wrong in these old enmities. Don't forget that when Martial Uncle Xian Kong and Senior Jiang Xingchu were together, your Emperor Jiang clan was proud of it." He paused for a moment and continued. "But later on, some misfortunes occurred, yet all of you pushed all the blame onto Martial Uncle Xian Kong. Isn't this a little too unfair?" Jiang Yutong's expression suddenly became terrifyingly icy cold. "Fellow Taoist, I'm even more aware of what happened all those years ago. Xian Kong is dead, Mount Innerheart has been destroyed, and Xingxue has been imprisoned. My Jiang clan has already paid a sufficient price for this. Now let me ask all of you, why have you come looking for us now?" Lin Sun spoke once more. "Before senior brother Xian Kong passed away, he instructed me to meet Jiang Xingxue and return an object to him. Besides this, I have no other intentions." "What object?" Jiang Rui asked with a frown. Lin Sun said, "You'll know when you meet Jiang Xingxue." The hairpin shaped like a bamboo leaf given to him by Xian Kong looked very ordinary, but who knew if there were any mysteries hidden in it? "Haha, you little thing, you want to see Xingxue? You're dreaming." Jiang Yutong laughed with anger and disdain on his face. His whole body was surging with qi that belonged to the Emperor realm. If it weren't for Boyazi's protection, Lin Sun would have been suppressed on the spot with his current cultivation. But Lin Sun looked extremely calm at this moment. He smiled and said, "Since I'm here, I won't give up." "Him?" Jiang Yutong squinted at Boyazi with disdain. "Young man, Mount Innerheart is not the same as it was in ancient times. But you talk as arrogantly as the successor of Mount Innerheart. Aren't you worried that I'll catch you and hand you over to your enemies?" Boyazi sneered. "Really? I'm afraid that your Jiang clan will suffer another disaster today." Now that things had come to this, he had to throw caution to the wind. Jiang Rui said angrily, "Yunya, how dare you threaten our Jiang clan?" Boyazi said coldly, "Fellow Taoist, it was you who threatened us first. You keep saying that we're remnants. What does your Jiang clan take us to be?" A cold glow suddenly flashed in his eyes as he said, "There's no need to waste your breath. If your Jiang clan still cares about the friendship from all those years ago, then allow my junior martial uncle to meet Jiang Xingxue. Otherwise, I won't let this matter rest even if I have to fight with my life on the line." The threat of an Emperor realm figure was enough to make anyone afraid. Moreover, Boyazi was not an ordinary Emperor realm figure. His words made Jiang Yutong and Jiang Rui extremely sullen. Their eyes were full of anger. How dare these two mountain inner heart remnants threaten them in the Jiang clan's territory? Ding! Suddenly, Jiang Yutong turned over his palm and a bronze bell rang, emitting ripples of sound waves. Within a secret realm in the deepest depths of Flame Emperor City, two boundlessly terrifying auras suddenly charged out from within two abodes that had been silent for a long time. In the next moment, two figures had teleported here and appeared by Jiang Yutong's side. One was a black-clothed man that was thin like a bamboo, had gray hair, and a cold gaze. A crimson flame gourd hung at his waist, and his aura was obscure. The other was an old man that seemed as if he had 1 foot in the grave. He had white hair, muddy eyes, and held a verdant 7-foot-long bamboo cane. As soon as they appeared, Boyazi's expression changed while his heart felt heavy. The former was called Jiang Liuhua and the latter was called Jiang Lanshui. Both of them had attained the Tao and become emperors during the ancient times. Moreover, their reputations shook the starry sky, and they were extraordinary figures that everyone in the world knew about. However, Boyazi had never imagined that these two people would actually still be alive. Because according to rumor, these two old freaks of the Jiang clan had perished during the Tao battles of the emperors all those years ago. Obviously, the rumor was false. No matter what, 2 Emperor Realm existences had suddenly appeared here, and the Jiang clan had an entire 4 Emperor Realm existences in total. Such a lineup caused Boyazi's heart to sink to rock bottom. Chapter 2014. Ringing the Emperor Yan's spiritual bell. Could there be an invasion? As soon as Jiang Liuhua and Jiang Lanshui arrived, their gazes locked onto Boyazi. Jiang Yutong then recounted everything that had happened. After listening, Jiang Liuhua took off the red gourd at his waist and drank a mouthful of wine, his expression cold. Desperate? You can try and see if you can cause harm to my Jiang clan. The white-haired, elderly Jiang Lanshui let out a long sigh. Evil, it's been so many years, why can't your Fangsuan mountain stop for a while? Boyazi snorted coldly. Why do I remember that before the Emperor's law battle, your Jiang clan did not treat my Fangsuan mountain with such an attitude? Jiang Yutong's face darkened. But your Fangsuan mountain has already been destroyed, and my Jiang clan has paid a great price for it. How do you expect us to treat you remnants? Remnants? Lin Sun, who had been ignored all this while, suddenly opened his mouth, his dark eyes incomparably deep. I respect you as my seniors, so I have always tolerated, but aren't you being a little too presumptuous? His voice was indifferent. Jiang Yutong, Jiang Rui, Jiang Liuhua and Jiang Lanshui, the 4 emperors, were all stunned. Since when did a little thing at the peak of the Saint King realm dare to speak to them like this? It was absurd. It should be known that in the entire starry heavens, emperors were like supreme rulers, looked up to by countless beings. Even a quasi-emperor was as insignificant as an ant in the eyes of a true emperor realm. But now, a peak Saint King said that they were being presumptuous. Presumptuous? Even if I kill you, it's no different from crushing an ant. Jiang Yutong's voice was awe-inspiring, and a terrifying and boundless power spread out, as if the supreme will of the heavens had descended, oppressing Lin Sun. If you want to deal with my martial uncle, you'll have to step over my dead body first. Boyazi stepped out, his clothes fluttering, releasing a breath that dissolved the power into nothingness. His bearing was resolute and disdainful. Martial uncle? Jiang Liuhua couldn't help laughing. You're an emperor, but you address a little thing as martial uncle. You've lost all face as emperors. Forget it. Let's capture them first and find out their true intentions before we deal with them. Jiang Lanshui's voice was old and hoarse, but his attitude was the most domineering and overbearing. This one sentence was like an order, causing Jiang Yutong, Jiang Rui and Jiang Liuhua to circulate their strength simultaneously. Boom! Terrifying Emperor Realm auras were like dragons emerging from the abyss, blotting out the sky and completely sealing off this paradise, completely isolating it from the outside world. Jiang Lanshui leaned on the 7-foot-long bamboo stick and knocked on the ground, saying, "This is our Yen Emperor city. When we fight later, be careful. Don't harm our people." Of course. Jiang Yutong and the others smiled in a relaxed manner. How could 4 martial emperors not be able to take down a survivor of Fangtsuan Mountain? The atmosphere was somber. Boyazi took a deep breath, and then he suddenly straightened his back and revealed a resolute bearing as he said via voice transmission, "Young martial uncle, I still have some trump cards in my possession. If I fight desperately, then there should be a trace of hope for me to send you off safely. If you have the chance to see Master in the future, please tell him that I have no regrets in my life to be able to follow him in cultivation." As he spoke, he was about to act when Lin Sun's voice sounded in his ears. "If you respect me as young martial uncle, then let me handle this matter." What? Boyazi's eyes narrowed, almost not daring to believe his ears. Young martial uncle was still making such a joke at a time like this? Those were 4 martial emperors. "Let's do it." Jiang Lanshui spoke, his old face full of indifference. Jiang Yutong and the others nodded. Boom! Terrifying monarch realm laws emerged from the 4 of them like dazzling divine chains that intertwined with one another. They were dazzling and exuded a terrifying aura. Just this kind of power could crush mountains and rivers. Suppress. Jiang Yutong and the other 3 moved together. Jiang Yutong took out a Taoist sword. The blade was like lightning, dazzling like the sun, reflecting the terrifying scene of fire refining the firmament and burning all things. Taoist sword, burning spirit. Jiang Rui waved his sleeve, and a golden soft whip soared into the air. The whip shadows overlapped, transforming into a golden sea of laws, like a celestial river descending from the sky. Divine whip, golden river. Hummed the red gourd in Jiang Liuhua's palm flew up, emitting a fiery glow. The mouth of the gourd spat out a gray tongue of flame. Spirit gourd, muddy fire. Jiang Lanshui lifted the 7-foot green bamboo stick in his hand and pointed it in the void. Countless verdant lightning arcs condensed together, turning into a lustrous and translucent bamboo leaf, shining brightly in the void. Ancient treasure, heaven thunder bamboo stick. In an instant, the 4 martial emperors took out 4 emperor treasures and attacked together with thunderous momentum. Obviously, they wanted to end the battle quickly and suppress Boyazi in one fell swoop. Because if the battle dragged on for too long, it was bound to affect Yen Emperor City. This was absolutely intolerable to Jiang Yutong and the others. In an instant, the killing intent enveloped them. Boyazi's face changed abruptly, and even his breath stopped. He felt an incomparably strong fatal aura. He had no time to care about anything else, nor to consult Lin Sun's opinion. This time, he couldn't let Lin Sun die here in any case. But just as Boyazi made his move, a graceful figure abruptly appeared before him, raised her hand, and pressed it against the void. It was an illusory woman, bathed in dreamy brilliance and radiance, revealing a sacred and transcendent air. She seemed to have been there for a long time. Her manner was calm and her movements were understated. But when her white and slender hand pressed down in the void, with a wail, the Taoist sword-burning spirit trembled violently like a snake that had been stabbed in the heart. It staggered and flew out, its glow dimming. Jiang Yutong's mind shook violently. His qi and blood surged, and his expression changed abruptly. Then, with a dull and terrible roar, the Emperor Qi suddenly exploded in the field like a landslide and a tsunami, and the magnificent and bright light of law sprinkled down all over the sky. Then, Jiang Rui's golden river whip rolled back and whipped Jiang Rui fiercely, causing his shoulder to bleed. With a muffled groan, he staggered back a few steps. Then, Jiang Liuhua's turbid fire gourd fell to the ground with a bang. Blood dripped from his lips, and he looked horrified. Then, with a bang, the leaf condensed from countless emerald green thunderbolts suddenly exploded, turning into a colorful rain of light. Jiang Lanshui held his breath and shook his 7-foot bamboo stick violently. All this took a long time to describe, but actually happened in an instant. It was too fast. It was so fast that Lin Sun didn't have time to react. The joint attack from Jiang Yutong and the other 3 emperors was resolved. From the beginning until the end, the illusory and graceful figure had merely pressed her hand down in the air. Boyazi, who was already prepared to die, suddenly gasped. He was an old monster who had been an emperor for a very long time, yet even he was shocked by this inconceivable scene. When the smoke and dust dissipated, Jiang Yutong and the others had become solemn, and their eyes were locked on the uninvited guest not far away. It was a woman whose face could not be seen clearly. Her figure was graceful, slender, and flowed with dreamy divine brilliance. She stood there alone, looking aloof and cold. But the aura on her body made Jiang Yutong and the others palpitate, because they could not see through her at all. "Senior, we have no choice but to trouble you to help." At this moment, Lin Sun spoke with a trace of helplessness. This woman was she who was cultivating in the heaven-accessing place. All these years, Lin Sun had thought that he would no longer need to rely on the power of she. But in the end, he discovered that he was still too insignificant in the face of an emperor. Jiang Yutong and the others' expressions changed slightly. Only then did they realize that this little thing whom they regarded as an ant had come prepared. Boyazi secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He could not help but feel proud in his heart. This was the master's little junior brother. How could he be bullied so easily? His feeling was almost the same as when Heng Xiao saw Lin Sun win first place in the Yunzhou Grand Competition. It's just a small matter. It's no trouble at all. I haven't come out for a breath of fresh air in a long time. Xi's voice was clear and ethereal. A small matter. Lin Sun could not help but be stunned. This was a battle between emperors and a group of old emperors at that. Why did it become a small matter when it came to Xi? Who are you? Why are you interfering in the Jiang clan's matters? Jiang Lanxue asked in a low voice. He did not dare to act rashly. Xi's aura was obscure and unfathomable, making him feel extremely threatened. Jiang Yutong and the others felt the same. Xi's appearance was very sudden, but it was obvious that she was an extremely frightening woman. She could dissolve their all-out attack with just a raise of her hand. How could she be ordinary? She did not care about Jiang Lanxue at all. She only asked Lin Sun softly, "I can see that they wanted to bully you. How do you think we should deal with them now?" Jiang Yutong could not help but say, "Friend, this is Yan Emperor City. Even if you are powerful, you still..." Before he finished speaking, she flicked her finger. Bang! Jiang Yutong was sent flying, coughing up blood. He looked extremely pathetic. This made Jiang Lanxue and the others' hair stand on end. The Emperor Realm had long stood at the peak of the starry sky. They were seen as supreme existences with earth-shattering might. But only those at the Emperor Realm knew that the Emperor Realm was an extremely long and obscure path. Although they were all at the Emperor Realm, the difference between them was vast. It was like climbing a mountain. Some were only standing at the foot of the mountain, some had already climbed to the waist, and some had already reached the peak. There was no doubt that this mysterious woman was a terrifying existence with power that far exceeded their imagination. "I don't like people talking too much when I speak," she said coldly. If it was before, Jiang Yutong and the others would definitely be unhappy to hear this. But now they were all silent, their expressions uncertain. They realized the severity of the problem. Even if this was the Jiang clan, an Emperor Realm clan, their territory, it was nothing in front of this mysterious woman. Chapter 2015. The atmosphere was silent. Jiang Yutong and the other 3 Emperor Realm old monsters of the Jiang clan were completely suppressed by Xi. They didn't even dare to breathe. This made Xi even more extraordinary. Her figure was graceful and illusory like a dream. Even Boyazi had a strong feeling that this woman was too terrifying. This reminded him of his master Li Xianwei. However, He couldn't be sure who was stronger between this woman and his master, because their attainments in the Emperor realm had arrived at an unfathomable and immeasurable state. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, "Senior, I came to the Jiang clan just to see someone. I don't want to cause any trouble." These words caused complicated expressions to appear on the faces of Jiang Yutong and the others. Under such an advantageous situation, a young man was able to disregard their former enmity and did not take the opportunity to attack them. This surprised them. "Your temper seems to have improved a lot." She was also surprised. In the past, if Lin Sun was bullied, he would definitely fight back without hesitation. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. If it was my own business, I wouldn't mind turning the world upside down this time. Lin Sun took a deep breath and said, "But now, I just don't want to disappoint senior brother Xian Kong. If he were alive, he wouldn't want to see anything bad happen." He couldn't forget the sadness and disappointment on senior brother Xian Kong's face when he gave him the light green bamboo leaf-shaped hairpin in the city of Vain Death. He also wouldn't forget that senior brother Xian Kong only told him to give the hairpin to Jiang Xingchua, not to make a scene in the Jiang clan. That was why Lin Sun restrained his anger and chose to endure the 4 Emperor Realm old monsters' bullying. "Okay." She nodded and looked at Jiang Yutong and the others. "Do you agree?" His casual words caused the hearts of Jiang Yu and the others to constrict, and they exchanged glances with each other while their expressions changed indeterminately. Making them lower their heads like this in the territory of the Emperor clan, the Jiang clan, was something that they were too unwilling to do. "Taoist friend, it's not that we are cruel, but if today's matter is leaked, the Jiang clan will definitely suffer again," Jiang Lanxue said in a low voice. The successor of Minuscule Mountain had suddenly come to their clan and even met Jiang Xingqiu. What would those forces that hated Minuscule Mountain think if they knew about this? "Won't it be fine as long as we don't leak it?" Xi's voice was cold. "Or perhaps you still do not agree in your hearts and are just finding excuses?" Jiang Lanshue's heart trembled. He said, "Fellow Taoist, we are indeed somewhat unwilling." "Oh," she said, "I can give you all a chance to express your dissatisfaction. However, only once. After that, if you all continue to be stubborn, I don't mind killing a few people." Jiang Lanxue and the others glanced at each other and nodded. "This place is an important place of my clan, and it's branded with the will of my clan's ancestor, the primordial Flame Emperor. If fellow Taoist is able to resist the slaughter of this power, then we will definitely not dare to resist." Jiang Lan said. Bo Yazi's pupils narrowed, and he couldn't restrain himself any longer. "Everyone, my young martial uncle and this fellow Taoist have already exercised sufficient forbearance, yet all of you actually made such a request. Aren't you going too far? Just how terrifying would the will of the primordial Flame Emperor be?" However, at this moment, Xi's eyes lit up and revealed a look of interest. He said, "No wonder I sensed an unusual power in this place the moment I appeared. It should be the power of your primogenitor's will, right?" Jiang Lanxue and the others couldn't help but be stunned. This woman had actually sensed it immediately? "Quickly unseal this power. I want to try and see if this person has already comprehended the mystery of progenitor transformation in the Emperor's Path search back then." Progenitor transformation. This mysterious word caused all the martial Emperor old monsters, including Bo Yazi and Jiang Yutong, to be shocked. The 9 heavens of the Emperor's Path, the progenitor transformation realm. That was a supreme realm that they didn't even dare to think about. For a moment, Jiang Lanxue and the others hesitated, feeling that she was even more unfathomable. "What's wrong?" She glanced at them. Jiang Lanxue immediately gritted his teeth and said, "Let's do it." Immediately, he, Jiang Liuhua, Jiang Yutong and Jiang Rui each took out a strange Taoist pattern of flame, which rose into the air. When the 4 Taoist patterns gathered together, the void shone brightly, and a dazzling flame emerged. A terrifying and ancient supreme aura also pervaded the air. Bo Yazi's expression changed abruptly, and he circulated his power to protect Lin Sun. She's clothes fluttered in the wind. She raised her head slightly and looked straight at the dazzling flame. Her entire body flowed with a magnificent, dreamlike divine rain of light. She seemed to have noticed something and murmured, "Yes, this is the aura." Boom! In the blazing and shocking flame, a majestic figure bathed in divine fire emerged. The image of a burning universe and galaxy was reflected behind his head, as if he was the ruler of divine fire. That aura was terrifying enough to make the starry sky tremble and all worlds admire him. With Lin Sun's eyesight and mind, he couldn't see this figure at all because it was too dazzling and supreme. Even with Bo Yazi's protection, it still made his hair stand on end and he felt suffocated. The power of the ancient flame emperor, Bo Yazi, was also shocked. This was a legendary supreme figure who had shocked the ages and shocked the heavens. Jiang Lanshui and the others were also excited at this moment, revealing fanaticism and reverence. This was the aura that belonged to their ancestor. The Flame Emperor, in the ancient times, conquered the world, swept away all enemies, and dazzled the starry sky. He was looked up to by billions of living beings. Now, his power had appeared in the world again. Greetings to the ancestor, unfilial descendant. Jiang Lanshui and the others bowed. What happened? The majestic figure spoke, his voice rumbling like the sound of Tao. Visible to the naked eye, the rolling law of fire flowed down from his body, evolving into endless wonderful images. "I want to fight you," said she. Her graceful figure stepped forward, sparkling and translucent light surging around her. As she spoke, she suddenly pressed out a finger. It was simple, but everyone's eyes stung and their souls trembled. They could no longer see anything. Their vision and divine sense were all white. This caused all of them to be astounded. What kind of terrifying cultivation was this that even emperors like them were not qualified to watch such a battle? After an unknown period of time, Shi's cold voice sounded, "So, you also did not take that step back then." Then, everyone's vision became clear. Only then did they see Shi standing alone, her clothes fluttering with sparkling light. In the distance, the Flame Emperor's willpower was still as powerful as before. Fellows' words are mistaken. This willpower was left behind by me when I left back then, and the reason why I left was to take that step. The ancient Flame Emperor's voice rumbled with a unique arrogance. Is that so? But after so many years, it seems that your original body did not return. She said indifferently. Jiang Yutong and the others were shocked. I will return. The ancient Flame Emperor's voice was low, but there was determination in it. This step cannot be broken just like this. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly turned into a rain of fire and disappeared. Bo Yazi heaved a sigh of relief. Regardless of whether it was the ancient Flame Emperor or Shi, they both seemed to be searching for a path to break through. But what exactly was this path? Why was it that even with the power of the ancient Flame Emperor and Shi's strength, they still could not find it? Jiang Yutong and the others felt a sense of loss and heaviness. Even the primogenitor's willpower was blocked by this mysterious woman. Didn't this mean that as long as she willed it, no one in the Jiang clan could stop her? Are you still unwilling to give up? She looked at Jiang Yutong and the others. Jiang Lanshui's voice was bitter as he said, "Fellow's remarkable abilities make us gasp in admiration." She seemed to have done something trivial. She nodded at Lin Sun, then her figure turned into a hazy rain of light and disappeared. When she left, Jiang Lanshui and the others, as well as Bo Yazi, all heaved a sigh of relief. It was as if a divine mountain had been removed from their bodies. It couldn't be helped. The pressure and threat she brought them was too great. When they looked at Lin Sun again, their expressions were very complicated. There was no longer the contempt and disregard from before. "Come with me," Jiang Lanshui sighed. He decided to bring Lin Sun to see Jiang Xingque. Thank you. Lin Sun felt relaxed. In the depths of Emperor Yan's city, there was a void path that led to a secret realm. Jiang Lanxue brought Lin Sun and flew into it silently. The secret realm was a world of lava. The ground was covered with a boundless sea of fire. The waves of fire rolled and splashed thousands of meters high. Extremely hot smoke filled the air, making the whole world seem like a huge furnace. It was boiling and burning, as if it would melt everything. This was the place where Jiang Xingque was imprisoned. Xingque, there's a guest who wants to see you. Jiang Lanxue spoke. His voice reverberated in the entire world of lava. How many years has it been? I thought you've already forgotten about me, the sinner of the clan, a faint voice sounded. It was like a whisper, filled with endless disappointment. Jiang Lanxue's expression flickered. He let out a long sigh and said, I've brought the guest. You can talk. With that, he turned around and left. Lin Sun looked around. All he saw was a sea of fire. Fire mist rose between heaven and earth. He couldn't see anyone at all. Just when he was puzzled, a black boat suddenly emerged above the sea of fire. A woman sat alone on the boat. She was dressed in a snow-white morning dress. Her black hair was as black as ink, hanging down loosely. On the fiery sea, she gave people the feeling of being as cold as ice on a cliff. When Lin Sun looked at her, the woman also raised her head slightly and looked at him. The next moment, the woman seemed to notice something. She suddenly stood up and said, It's the breath of everlasting leakless. Xiankong, is that you've finally come back to pick me up? Chapter 2016. In the sea of fire, the black boat broke through the wave. On the boat, a woman in a white silk dress finally showed her face. It was a beautiful, pale face, eyes as clear as a spring, and eyebrows as deep as mountains. Her expression was one of absent-mindedness and excitement, and her voice was trembling. It was as if she could see the elegant and carefree figure of the past appearing in front of her after countless years. This woman was Jiang Xingque, a poor woman who had been imprisoned here for nearly 100,000 years. Lin Sun realized at once that she had mistaken him for someone else. Although he couldn't bear it, he still explained, Senior, you've mistaken me for someone else. How could I be mistaken? I can't mistake you for the spirit of everlasting and leakless. Jiang Xingque seemed very excited. She came to Lin Sun with her eyes full of excitement and trance. Brother Xiankong, you're really good at disguising yourself. Those old guys in my family must have been fooled by you. You must take me away this time. Her voice was tense and pleading. For the first time, Lin Sun found that a woman who had been imprisoned for nearly 100,000 years could be so pitiful and distressing. Just because he had practiced the method of everlasting and leakless, she mistook him for Xiankong. It could be imagined how much she missed Brother Xiankong in these years. Her dazed, and excited actions displayed how much she cared about her senior brother Xiankong. This made Lin Sun's heart ache. How nice it would be if Brother Xiankong was alive to see this scene. After a moment of silence, Lin Sun sighed softly and dared not look into her eyes. He said, Senior, my name is Lin Sun. I'm Brother Xuankong's junior fellow apprentice. I'm entrusted by Brother Xiankong to return an item to you. Brother Xiankong, you're lying to me, aren't you? Jiang Xingque was like a lonely child. Her voice was pleading, and tears were swirling in her eyes. Lin Sun was speechless and couldn't go on. He couldn't bear it. He turned over his palm and a light cyan bamboo leaf-shaped hairpin appeared. Jiang Xingque, who was originally in a daze and on the verge of tears, was stunned. He stared at the hairpin in a daze and seemed to have recalled countless memories of the past. In the distance, the sea of lava churned and roared. Jiang Xingque's snow-white silk dress fluttered in the wind as she stood there with tears rolling down her cheeks. Lin Sun suddenly regretted that he should not have taken it out earlier. Otherwise, Jiang Xingque would not be so sad. After a long time, Jiang Xingque seemed to have calmed down. With a rare tenderness in his eyes, he stared at Lin Sun and said, "Can you just take it as Xian Kong putting on this hairpin for me?" Lin Sun nodded without hesitation. With a heartfelt smile on his face, Jiang Xingxue turned around and murmured, "Brother Xian Kong, you said that as long as I saw this hairpin, it would prove that you are still alive. Now, I've been waiting for your news." Lin Sun raised his hand and coiled up Jiang Xingxue's long hair that was as black as ink. He gently coiled it on his head, picked up the light cyan hairpin, and gently inserted it. "Senior, you're right. It's because of senior brother Xuankong's entrustment that I can bring this thing to you," Lin Sun said softly. When Jiang Xingxue turned around, there were no traces of tears in her eyes. Her face was as still as water, and her expression was extremely calm. She seemed to have completely calmed down without the excitement, trance, and infatuation from before. "Thank you, junior brother." Jiang Xingxue saluted. "This is the best news I've heard in countless years." Lin Sun hurriedly said, "Senior, please don't be like this. This is what I should do as a junior brother. You're my husband's junior brother. How can you call me senior? Call me sister-in-law." Jiang Xingxue smiled. Her appearance was clear and elegant, and her appearance was extremely beautiful. Her actions were gentle, but her complexion was very pale. "Okay." Lin Sun nodded. After that, Jiang Xingxue led Lin Sun to the black boat that was anchored on the Sea of Flames. After they sat down, Jiang Xingxue asked Lin Sun many questions, and practically all of them were related to Xiankong. Lin Sun told her everything. However, he intentionally concealed the matter of Xiankong being trapped in the city of the wronged and leaving the world. Jiang Xingxue seemed to be very calm from the beginning until the end. After he spoke about many things about Xiankong, she asked about Lin Sun as well. Lin Sun naturally wouldn't conceal anything, and he told her about how he'd become an inheritor of Mount Innerheart and how he'd sought the path towards the Tao all these years. Perhaps it was because he'd been trapped for too long, but Jiang Xingxue listened with great interest. Later on, when she found out that Lin Sun would be heading to the Central Plains Prefecture to participate in the Tao discussion held by the 6 great Tao courts in half a year, Jiang Xingxue instantly frowned. On the other hand, when she found out that Lin Sun possessed a method to conceal his identity and didn't have to worry about being discovered, Jiang Xingxue heaved a sigh of relief. Junior brother, amongst the 6 great Tao courts all those years ago, the Chaos, Cosmos, and Martial Tao courts were the most hostile towards Mount Innerheart, and they were the most proactive when it came to dealing with Mount Innerheart. Jiang Xingxue pondered deeply and said, "Even though you already possess a complete method to conceal your identity, you must still be careful when you participate in the Tao discussion. According to my knowledge, the 6 great Tao courts have old seniors that call themselves ancestors in the Emperor realm. If they target you, it'll absolutely be a great calamity." Lin Sun was stern and said, "I will." As he spoke, he couldn't help but ask, "Sister-in-law, besides the 3 great Tao courts, what's the attitude of the other 3 great Tao courts towards the matter of Mount Innerheart?" "The dark yellow Tao court is the most neutral and doesn't help either side," Jiang Xingxue said. "The Fiend court decided to watch from the sidelines. Although the destruction of the Taoist orthodoxy of Fangsuan Mountain had little to do with the Fiend court, the Fiend court did try to seize some of Fangsuan Mountain's heritage." As for the Guiyuan Tao court, as he spoke up to this point, Jiang Xingxue shook his head. "This Tao court is the most mysterious. It has never appeared before and after the Tao battle of the ancient emperors." Lin Sun had heard that the Guiyuan Tao court should be the most transcendent force among the 6 great Tao courts. It was almost secluded from the world. This sect had extremely few successors, but every successor had the cultivation of the emperor realm. One sect was a great emperor, and all generations returned to the origin. This was the Guiyuan Tao court. Actually, it wasn't just the Chaos, Panwu, and Qiankuan Tao courts that participated in the battle against Minuscule Mountain. Some of the clans of the 7 primordial demon emperors and some of the 10 war clans also participated. For example, the Emperor Clan Kong Clan, the Emperor Clan Su Clan, the Emperor Clan Kuan Clan, and the 10 war clans Blood Scale Battle Clan, Heaven Ghost Battle Clan, Taowu Battle Clan. When a wall is down, everyone gives it a push. The inheritance power of Mount Innerheart is too powerful. When Mount Innerheart encountered a great disaster, who wouldn't want a share of it? Jiang Xingxue could not help but sigh at this point. It's a pity that Mount Innerheart's orthodoxy was destroyed in the end. Lin Sun's heart was in turmoil. After a while, he said, I only know that Mount Innerheart's orthodoxy might have collapsed, and the forces it had would have vanished into thin air. But as long as we, the successors of Mount Innerheart, are still alive. His voice was resolute. Even if they were just wandering ghosts scattered across the heavens, and once their identities were exposed, they would be hunted by many people. But as long as they were alive, they could pass down the torch of Mount Innerheart from generation to generation. Jiang Xingxue stared at Lin Sun and said, Junior brother, your senior brother Xiankong once said that the greatest strength of Fangtsuan Mountain doesn't lie in how powerful it is or how many legacies it possesses. Instead, it lies in having descendants like you. As long as people are alive, it means that Mount Innerheart's orthodoxy is still alive. Lin Sun nodded in agreement. Junior brother, I'm unable to help you with the matter of you participating in the Tao discussion. However, I can tell you the secret of why your senior brother Xian Kong was reputed to be invincible in the Saint Realm all those years ago. Speaking of this, Jiang Xingxue revealed a touch of pride. Xian Kong was the man she admired the most, and also the greatest pride in her heart. Lin Sun's heart shook, and a strong sense of curiosity welled up in him. Sister-in-law, please enlighten me. Jiang Xingxue's eyes were gentle, and she seemed to recall the past. She said, after your senior brother Xian Kong stepped into the Saint Realm, it only took him less than 100 years to become the supreme of the true saint, great saint and saint king realms. No one could compare to him, and no one could reach him. At that time, he alone was able to suppress all his peers in the all heavens. At that time, the black-yellow celestial court was alarmed many times, and had to revise the rankings of the 3 Saint Realm rankings in advance. As long as your senior brother Xian Kong was ranked first, no one could shake his position. Even the peerless geniuses of the 6 major Tao courts, and the outstanding people of the 10 war clans, couldn't do it. At that time, there was a popular saying in the ancient way of the starry sky. Who could claim to be invincible in the Saint Realm? Who dared to claim to be invincible? Only Xian Kong of Fangtsuan Mountain knew about it. This is called invincible in the Saint Realm in the heavens. Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp, and his heart was full of longing. He never expected that senior brother Xian Kong, who was trapped in the city of the wronged, would have such a bright and glorious past. Unfortunately, before he could break through to the Saint Realm, the Tao battle of the emperors broke out. Otherwise, with his talent and foundation, he was bound to be so dazzling. Jiang Xingxue's voice carried a trace of sadness, and he only restrained his emotions after a long time, and then he said with a smile, Junior brother, do you know that before he became a saint, your senior brother Xian Kong was the most inconspicuous figure in Fangtsuan Mountain? He was shy, and his face would blush when he talked to girls, and he couldn't even speak. He always said that he was a herder. His family was poor when he was young, and in order to support his family, he helped herd the sheep at a very young age. Because of his poverty and thin body, he was often ridiculed by his peers, and it caused him to feel inferior and antisocial. Later on, by chance, he entered Fangtsuan Mountain to cultivate, and Xian Kong has always helped take care of the spirit birds and spirit beasts on Fangtsuan Mountain. Chapter 2017. Speaking of this, Jiang Xingxue looked up at Lin Sun and said, Junior brother, do you know why your senior brother Xian Kong is invincible in the Saint Realm? Lin Sun was shocked and said, "I'd like to hear the details." Because he seeks a path towards the Tao that has never existed since the ancient times. Thus, the strength he possesses can be said to be unprecedented. As soon as Jiang Xingque said this, Lin Sun had a feeling that he was not alone. "It turns out that I'm not the first," Lin Sun murmured. Jiang Xingque was also stunned, and then immediately understood and said with a smile, "It seems that you have realized this very early." She paused for a moment and said, "Your senior brother Xian Kong once said that there are countless people like him in the world that seek a path that has never existed since the ancient times, yet only a handful of them are able to succeed in the end. It's not that it's too difficult, but we are disturbed by many forces when we practice. For example, you should have comprehended many Taoist scriptures and secret techniques since you started cultivating until now, and you've also received guidance from many experts, right?" Lin Sun nodded. Among the inheritances he had mastered, there were Samsara scripture, Yellow Court scripture, Nine Cauldrons world suppression scripture, endless devouring scripture, other inheritances such as fighting saint method, Tai Xian sword scripture, 9 changes of calamity dragon, 9 strikes of shaking heaven, great divination finger, first cut of Tianyuan. All of them were inherited from others. In these years, Lin Sun had also received guidance from many masters, such as the Golden Cicada Youth, Shi, Green Sun Saber Emperor, and so on. Even the art of eternity and no leak was inherited from senior brother Xiankong. Jiang Xingque said softly, "These inheritances and powers are of great benefit to our cultivation, but at the same time, they will imperceptibly affect our pursuit of Tao. Those experiences, comprehensions, inheritances, Tao arts. All of them are branded with the wisdom and understanding of the grand Tao of others. When they're absorbed and refined by us, it seems to have become our own, but at the bottom of it all, it's still their inheritance in the end, and you're merely inheriting it. Many cultivators in the world are unable to discern this. They think that the path towards the Tao they seek is different from others, but in reality, they've imperceptibly been influenced by others, causing all of them to fail when they seek strength that is unprecedented in the past and present." Lin Sun couldn't help praising, indeed. Jiang Xingque smiled. "This is what your senior brother Xian Kong said back then. I'm just telling you." Lin Sun also shared his own understanding. The sea contains all rivers. This is the unique skill of carrying on the past. It is to draw inferences about other things from one instance and blaze a new trail. This is to seek a way different from the world for oneself. This is to carry on the past and open up the future. He paused for a moment and continued. The core of an inheritance is to learn from others, and it isn't to form one's own path towards the Tao. Only in this way would one have the chance to accomplish something that has never been done since the ancient times. Jiang Xingque was even more surprised, and he said, "Junior brother, looks like your path towards the Tao doesn't require the guidance of others. Can you tell me about the Tao you seek?" Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "To accommodate all Tao, to develop all Dharma. There is no Tao in the world that cannot be accommodated, and there is no Dharma that cannot be developed in the universe. All streams return to the origin, and my Tao is one." An inexplicable shock surged in Jiang Xingque's heart. This Tao path was too taboo. One had to understand that there were tens of thousands of Taos in the world. How vast was it? Only by obtaining the power of an ancestor in the Emperor realm could one be called the ancestor of a Tao. But now, what Lin Sun said was to accommodate all Taos in the world. If so, when he became an emperor, wouldn't he have to seek the Tao of the ancestor of all Taos? The more Jiang Xingque thought about it, the more shocked she was. As far as she knew, there were some extremely amazing and peerless figures in ancient times who died because the Tao they pursued was too taboo. "Junior brother, have you encountered any taboo things since you started your cultivation?" She couldn't help asking. Yes. Lin Sun didn't conceal anything. He told her about the strange taboo catastrophe he encountered when he became a saint, and the taboo catastrophe he caused when he created his own dharma. Have you resolved them all? Jiang Xingqiu asked. Lin Sun nodded. Jiang Xingqiu's heart at this moment could no longer be described as shocked. She looked at Lin Sun as if she was looking at a monster. After a while, she couldn't help laughing and said, "Your senior brother Xiankong was amazing and heaven-defying in those days. I never thought that you would be even better than him." After a pause, Jiang Xingqiu took out a golden animal bone jade slip and handed it to Lin Sun. "But because of this, I can give this to you without any worries." Lin Sun was stunned. "What is this?" "This is your senior brother Xuankong's understanding and experience in the saint realm. When we were together, he left this thing to help me cultivate. Take it." Jiang Xingqiu's eyes were gentle. Lin Sun instantly realized the great value of this thing. Senior brother Xiankong was known as invincible in the saint realm in those days. How could the understanding and experience he left behind be ordinary? Although the Tao you and your senior brother are pursuing is different, both are unprecedented since ancient times. This jade slip is the most suitable for you. Jiang Xingqiu looked gentle and amiable, as if she was treating her closest junior. In fact, if it weren't for the seniority, she was more than qualified to be Lin Sun's elder since she rose in ancient times. "Thank you, sister." Lin Sun took a deep breath and accepted the gift with both hands. "You have to cultivate hard. Your senior brother Xiankong was invincible in the saint realm. You can do it too. I'm looking forward to your performance in the Tao discussion conference." Jiang Xingqiu's eyes were full of hope. Lin Sun felt warm in his heart and nodded. After talking for a while, Jiang Lanshui's voice suddenly resounded in this magma world. "Xingqiu, it's getting late." Jiang Xingqiu frowned and looked at Lin Sun, transmitting his voice to him. "Junior brother, don't blame my clansmen. Although they are full of resentment against Mountain Heart, some Emperor Realm cultivators of Jiang clan fought side by side with Mountain Heart in the Tao Battle of Emperors. Moreover, even though I've been imprisoned here, I know very well that this is the only way my clan can protect my life. Otherwise, the Chaos, Panwu, and Universe Tao courts will definitely not let the matter rest. I only hope that you can understand Jiang clan's difficulties." Lin Sun nodded seriously and said, "Don't worry, sister." Soon, Lin Sun left. Jiang Lanshui had been waiting there for a long time. He took a complicated look at Jiang Xingqiu, who was seeing them off in the distance. In the end, he just sighed and left the secret realm with Lin Sun without saying anything. A black boat floated on the raging sea of fire. All of a sudden, Jiang Xingqiu became the only person in the world. At this time, she raised her hand and took off the hairpin on her head. She clenched her hands tightly, and tears flowed down her beautiful but pale face. She sat there unconsciously, staring at the light cyan bamboo leaf-shaped hairpin in her hand, lost in thought. "Brother Xiankong, I saw junior brother. He said that you are still alive, but I know that if you are really alive, you will definitely come to see me. Come to think of it, we have been separated for more than 100,000 years. Time really flies. Don't worry, I will come to find you soon. But before that, I have to avenge you first." Jiang Xingqiu suddenly took a deep breath. His eyes, which were as clear as a spring, were filled with bone-deep hatred. Her hair, which was as black as ink, instantly turned into the color of frost and snow. "You must wait for me." She got up, her hair as white as snow and her dress as plain as silk. The black boat under her feet floated on the raging sea of fire. Flame Emperor City, in a blessed place. When he saw Lin Sun return with Jiang Lanshui, Boyazi, who had been waiting for him, heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Boyazi cupped his hands. Jiang Lanshui's expression was complicated as he said, "I only hope that the people of Mount Innerheart will not disturb Xingqiu anymore. Our Jiang clan cannot withstand your torment anymore." Boyazi and Lin Sun looked at each other, and without saying anything, they stood up and took their leave. However, when they were about to leave, Jiang Lanshui suddenly said, "In these countless years, I have been thinking about one thing. With the resources of your Mount Innerheart, you should be able to suppress the chaos, cosmos, and Panwu Dao courts if they join forces. But why was it destroyed just like that?" Lin Sun stopped and narrowed his eyes. In fact, during the law battle of the emperors back then, only 6 successors of your Mount Heart orthodoxy participated in the battle. The other successors were nowhere to be found. Many people thought that the missing successors had already been eliminated. Jiang Lanshui was silent for a moment before he said, "But I don't think so." After that, he didn't say anything else. Lin Sun said in his heart, "I don't think so either." Even when he left Danxia Divine Mountain with Boyazi, Lin Sun had been thinking about one thing. Back then, he had met 9th Senior Brother Guyupu at the Sky Lock Peak of the Kunlun ruins. He had also heard Guyupu talk about the Emperor's Law battle. He clearly remembered that only Guyupu and a few other senior brothers had participated in the battle. This in itself was very unusual. In the ancient times, Mount Innerheart already had 49 disciples like Senior Brother Li Xianwei, Senior Brother Pu Zhen, Senior Sister Juanhuan, which one of them wasn't an extremely powerful existence. But they didn't participate in the Emperor's Law battle like Senior Brother Guyupu. Why was that? Moreover, after the end of the Emperor's Dao battles, Senior Brother Guyupu had said that he was the one who had asked his master, the Lord of Fangtsuan Mountain, to arrange for him to stay on the Godlock Sky Peak. He wanted to suppress Demon Emperor Dutian and avenge his senior brothers who had fallen in the Dao battles. Putting everything else aside, this at least meant that after the Emperor's Law battle ended, the Master of Mount Innerheart was still alive. However, if the Master was still alive, why hadn't he appeared? Seeing that Mount Innerheart's orthodoxy had been destroyed, why didn't the Master take revenge? There must be something else behind this. Lin Sun thought for a long time, but he couldn't think of an answer. However, he knew that those senior brothers and senior sisters who were scattered in the heavens might be drifting around like lonely ghosts. But they were definitely doing something for Mount Innerheart that no one knew about. "Today I went out to handle some matters." The update was brought forward, and it was 2 consecutive updates. Besides that, let me explain a few things about Xian Kong. In the original setting, Xian Kong's cultivation level was at the peak of the Great Saint stage. This was indeed something that Goldfish hadn't expected. However, the plot required, or rather, Goldfish wanted to write Xian Kong's character more fully, which was why there was a bug in the cultivation level. Chapter 2018. A few days later, Lin Sun and Boyazi returned to Xuanji Taoism sect quietly. As soon as he returned, Lin Sun began to prepare for his closed-door cultivation. There was only half a year before the Tao discussion grand meeting. During this period, Lin Sun intended to improve his strength to another level. Yushu Peak in front of the Blessed Enclave. Xianyue, please help me collect some information about the Tao discussion grand meeting while I'm in closed-door cultivation, Lin Sun urged. Beside him, Jintian Xianyue, who was as beautiful as a fairy in snow-white clothes, nodded and said, "Don't worry, child. Of course, don't slack off in your cultivation. Take this." Lin Sun thought for a while, imprinted some of his insights and experiences in cultivation on the jade slip, and handed it over. Jintian Xianyue looked at it for a while, and her heart was filled with excitement and surprise. She knew the value of this jade slip too well. Although it was neither a cultivation method nor an inheritance, the cultivation experience and insights in it could be called a priceless treasure. It should be known that her child was almost invincible in the saint realm. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to easily win the first place in the Tao discussion grand meeting of Yunzhou. "Thank you, child." Jintian Xianyue raised her head, and her clear eyes rippled with extraordinary splendor. Lin Sun smiled slightly and said nothing more. He turned around and walked into the Blessed Enclave. The old ancestor is right. It's a rare opportunity to cultivate with child, even if it's just a role like a Taoist attendant, Jin Tian Xianyue murmured. She possessed peerless charm and beauty, and she'd always been a proud and aloof person. However, since she'd started cultivating until now, no one had ever been able to make her so convinced. Boom! Inside the cave, Lin Sun sat cross-legged, and all kinds of grand phenomena appeared around him. Divine brilliance flowed, the light was like rain, and the sound of Tao rumbled. This was the first time Lin Sun had a real closed-door cultivation since he crossed the starry sky and arrived in the Hongmeng world by boat. Everything was for the sake of breaking through. As he breathed, wind and thunder surged, and the airflow turned into the shape of a dragon python. It breathed, and his whole body was shining and flowing with Tao rhythm. In his body, the essence, qi, and spirit roared like a volcanic eruption, flowing in his limbs and bones, and his whole body released a kind of limitless momentum like that of an immortal. Fortunately, they were in the blessed grotto heaven, and there were layers of restrictions concealing them. Otherwise, the commotion caused by his cultivation alone would cause the clouds to surge and a phenomenon to descend from the heavens. All this was because Lin Sun's accumulated Taoism was too strong and majestic. His body, cultivation, and soul were all unparalleled in the world. Just as Lin Sun and Jiang Xingque said before, if you want to achieve the unprecedented Tao, you must cultivate the unprecedented power. From this day on, Lin Sun immersed himself in cultivation, unaware of the passage of time. 1 month later, inside the blessed enclave of Jade Peak, a roar like the beginning of chaos resounded from Lin Sun's body, and endless divine light rain rushed out of his body, brilliant and magnificent. The aura around his body rose steadily like a rising tide, and it surged with all sorts of miraculous phenomena. There was a great abyss that swallowed the sky, a great furnace that refined the world, and numerous laws of the Tao interweaved together, and they were crystalline, resplendent, and dazzling. Bursts of natural Taoist sounds, like the chanting of the gods and the chanting of the Sanskrit. For a moment, his whole body was covered with a layer of sacred and majestic aura, as if he was the holy king of the world, eternal and immortal. He broke through. After a long time, when everything calmed down, Lin Sun opened his eyes. In an instant, a pair of abysses emerged, and the void suddenly collapsed as if it was swallowed up. Late stage of the Saint King realm, feeling the surging power in his body, Lin Sun felt an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. This was probably the reason why cultivators persisted in pursuing Tao. This transformation in the realm was like a nirvana rebirth, and there was a sense of extreme sublimation both physically and mentally. The feeling was wonderful. Lin Sun got up and walked out of the cave residence. As early as during the Tao discussion in Yunzhou, his cultivation was only a step away from breaking through. Now that he had broken through after a month of closed-door training, it was a matter of course. Now, Lin Sun wanted to try the power after the breakthrough. Dragon Peak. Heng Xiao of Xuanji Taoism sect temporarily lived on this peak during this period of time. Congratulations on breaking through and making further progress on the road of Tao. When Heng Xiao saw Lin Sun appear on the Dragon Peak after a month of closed-door training, he was stunned at first, and then immediately showed a look of amazement and congratulated him. 1 month. His martial uncle seemed to have completely changed into a different person, and his cultivation had reached the late stage of the Saint King realm. This sort of shocking transformation caused Heng Xiao to be unable to help but be speechless. This is a living monster that can be said to be heaven-defying. You're too kind. I've only come this time to test my cultivation after my transformation, Lin Sun said with a smile. Heng Xiao pointed to himself and his eyes were strange. You don't tell me you want to spar with me? Lin Sun said. It would be better if you're willing to give me some pointers. Heng Xiao smiled bitterly. In this world, who in the Saint realm dared to spar with a quasi-emperor so casually? However, Heng Xiao would never forget that long before Lin Sun had made his breakthrough, He had killed 6 Quasi-Emperor realm cultivators all by himself. That bloody scene caused his heart to tremble when he thought about it even now. Hong Yu. Heng Shao summoned Hong Yu, the elder of Xuanji Taoism sect. Headmaster, what can I do for you? Soon, Hong Yu teleported over from the void. Jin Di has just broken through and wants to test his combat strength. Come and spar with him, Heng Shao said with a smile. As he spoke, he thought to himself, I'm the headmaster of a sect. Although I've long reached the perfection of the Quasi-Emperor realm, if I lose to Jin Di in a spar, how can I put my face? But if I ask Hong Yu to help me, I won't have to worry about this problem. Hong Yu's lips twitched and his face darkened. Not only Heng Shao, but he also heard of Lin Sun's fierce past achievements. How could he not understand the consequences of this spar when he heard such a request? Taking a deep breath, Hong Yu's smile stiffened and he tried to refuse. Headmaster, you may not know, but I've recently encountered some. Heng Shao interrupted. It's just a spar. Don't refuse. Hong Yu felt bitter in his mouth, but he could only bite the bullet and agree. My young friend, this is just a spar. Please show mercy. He looked at Lin Sun with helplessness. A Quasi-Emperor actually took the initiative to ask a peak Saint King to show mercy. If news of this were to spread, he would surely become the biggest laughing stock. But both Heng Shao and Hong Yu knew very well that the young man in front of them could not be treated as a normal person at all. Lin Sun was startled at first, then he smiled and said, In that case, please don't hold back when you fight. Hong Yu agreed readily. In fact, he didn't dare to hold back. Seeing this, Heng Shao specially arranged a secret realm for the two to spar in order to be seen by others. In that case, if Hong Yu lost too badly, it wouldn't look good soon. Lin Sun and Hong Yu entered the secret realm. Heng Shao waited outside. Moments later, Hong Yu's exasperated voice rang out from the secret realm. Headmaster, hurry up and get another helper. I'm no match for my young friend Jin Di alone. Heng Shao was stunned. He couldn't hold on so soon? It should be known that Hong Yu was the executioner of the Xuanji Dao sect. Among the Quasi-Emperors, his battle prowess was extremely ferocious and tyrannical. Heng Shao realized that something was wrong and hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Taijing, come quickly. Swoosh. The void rippled and a burly figure appeared. This person was one of the elders of the Xuanji Dao sect, Taijing, a late-stage Quasi-Emperor. Go to the secret realm and help Hong Yu fight, Heng Shao said quickly. The situation was urgent and he didn't have time to explain. Taijing's eyes widened and he said in shock, There's actually someone who can't get along with Elder Hong Yu? I'll go take a look. His voice was filled with murderous intent, and he had already rushed into the secret realm before he finished speaking. Heng Shao thought to himself, 2 Quasi-Emperors should be able to hold on for a while, right? But not long after, Taijing's voice was also heard, full of anger and shame. Headmaster, how could you trick me like this? Heng Shao gasped and said, Even the 2 of you can't? No. Hong Yu and Taijing's voices were heard in unison. Heng Shao couldn't care about anything else and called out again, Jin Jiling, Hizhu, Shui Qiu. He called out 3 names in one breath. Not long after, 3 figures arrived one after another. There were both men and women with different appearances. They were all Quasi-Emperors of the Xuanji Dao sect. Hizhu, you go in first, Heng Shao said quickly. Hizhu was confused but still entered the secret realm as he was told. At this time, Heng Shao explained to the other 2 Quasi-Emperors, Jin Di's cultivation has just broken through, so I sent some people to fight with him to verify his battle prowess. Jin Di. Jin Jiuling and Shui Qiu gasped in unison. They had witnessed Lin Sun killing 6 Quasi-Emperors, so how could they not know the consequences of such a fight? Headmaster, Hizhu alone doesn't seem to be enough, does he? Shui Qiu couldn't help asking. Heng Shao shook his head and said, He's not alone. Hong Yu and Taijing both entered before Hizhu. So it's 3 elders fighting together. Jin Jiuling breathed a sigh of relief. Shui Qiu's expression changed drastically. No, if the three of them can hold on, why did they call us here? Jin Jiuling's heart trembled when he heard this. Just then, Hong Yu's voice came from the secret realm again. It's not enough, it's not enough. This kid is too fierce, he's a monster. Send someone in quickly. His voice was filled with shock and anxiety. Shui Qiu and the others looked at each other in dismay. 3 quasi-emperors couldn't even suppress that kid? Heng Xiao gritted his teeth and said, "Now that things have come to this, we can't lose face." He waved his hand and said, "The two of you go in together." Shui Qiu and the others felt an indescribable awkwardness in their hearts. So many quasi-emperors had to fight together just to suppress a young man of peerless saint realm. It would be very embarrassing no matter who won. Heng Xiao was anxious. What are you waiting for? Go in quickly. Chapter 2019. After the 2 quasi-emperors, Shui Qiu and Jin Jiuling, entered the secret realm, it was equivalent to 5 quasi-emperors fighting fiercely with Lin Sun. Heng Xiao's lips twitched at the thought of this. Such a heaven-defying genius was as rare as a phoenix feather or a Qilin horn in the entire starry ancient path. At least, as far as Heng Xiao knew, he might only be seen in colossal entities like the 6 great Dao courts. Time ticked by. There were no more cries for help coming from the secret realm, which made Heng Xiao secretly heave a sigh of relief. If it still didn't work, then he would have to personally go into battle. 10 minutes later, the entrance to the secret realm rippled and Lin Sun's figure staggered out. His clothes were tattered and his hair was disheveled, making him look rather disheveled. Upon closer inspection, his face was pale and his aura was weak. Heng Xiao's eyelids twitched and he asked with concern, "Young friend, did they fight too hard and hurt you?" Lin Sun shook his head and smiled. "No, it was a very satisfying battle. Thank you for your help." Heng Xiao smiled. That's good. Young friend, you've just experienced a great battle, so you should go back and adjust your breathing to stabilize your realm." Lin Sun nodded and left. As he watched him leave, Heng Xiao couldn't help but sigh emotionally. This little martial uncle of my founding master is really a mess. Wait. Suddenly, Heng Xiao realized that something was wrong. Why hadn't Hong Yu, Taijing, and the others come out? He entered the secret realm in a flash, and when he saw Hong Yu and the others sitting cross-legged on the ground, Heng Xiao's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Whether it was Hong Yu, Taijing, Jin Jiuling, Shui Qiu, or He Zhu, they were all badly battered and unrecognizable, or their clothes were in tatters and they looked as miserable as beggars. These were 5 quasi-emperors, famous figures of the Xuanji Dao sect. But now, they looked as if they had been brutally beaten up one by one. Their appearance made Heng Xiao somewhat unable to bear to watch. That kid is a monster. Sigh, I'm getting old. I'm really useless now. If anyone dares to leak what happened today, I'll definitely fight him to the death. Hong Yu and the others gnashed their teeth with grief and indignation on their faces. At this moment, Heng Xiao felt more and more fortunate that he didn't go to fight with Lin Sun in person. Otherwise, he would have ended up like everyone else. After returning to the cave residence, Lin Sun began to meditate with his legs crossed. In the previous battle with the 5 quasi-emperor experts, both sides had agreed not to use any treasures or trump cards. But even so, with his current combat strength, he could already resist the joint attack of 5 quasi-emperors. Hong Yu and Taijing looked miserable before. In fact, it was because they were small in number at the beginning and couldn't bear Lin Sun's full strength. It was not until Shui Qiu and Jin Jiuling finally joined the battle that Lin Sun felt great pressure and threat. In the battle, he was suppressed. However, Lin Sun was very confident that if he used treasures or taboo supernatural powers like forbidden death, he would not be the one to be defeated in the end. After experiencing this battle, Lin Sun had a deep understanding of his own combat strength and finally understood the mysteries of the quasi-emperor realm. A quasi-emperor transcended all saints and was infinitely close to the emperor realm. At this realm, a cultivator's three types of cultivation, body refinement, soul refinement, and qi refinement, would condense the divine fire of the great Tao. It was also known as the third layer of flame of the quasi-emperor. Condensing one type of divine fire of the great Tao could be seen as the first layer of the quasi-emperor realm. Condensing two types of divine fire of the great Tao was the second layer of the quasi-emperor realm. When condensing three types of divine fire of the great Tao, body refinement, qi refinement, and spirit refinement, one would be known as the third layer of the quasi-emperor realm. 99% of the quasi-emperors in the world were stuck in the first layer of the quasi-emperor realm. The reason was that these cultivators, from the beginning of their cultivation, focused on qi refinement, spirit refinement, or body refinement. It was precisely because he was limited to only one path of Tao that even if he started to cultivate the other two paths of Tao in the future, because of his great Tao foundation, he would be stuck at the first stage of the great Tao after he became a quasi-emperor, unable to break through. For example, the quasi-emperors that Lin Sun had killed before, whether it was Chu Rao and Kong Yin from the imperial Kong clan or the 6 quasi-emperors from the Hellion clan, almost all of them were in the first layer of the quasi-emperor realm. Similarly, like Hong Yu, Taijing, and the other 4 quasi-emperors from the 4 Stars Dao sect, only Hong Yu was in the second layer of the quasi-emperor realm. The other 4 were stuck in the first layer of the quasi-emperor realm. And according to Hong Yu, in the entire 4 Stars Dao sect, only sect master Heng Shao was in the third layer of the quasi-emperor realm. So far, Lin Sun only knew that there were 3 checkpoints in the quasi-emperor realm, each more difficult than the last. The core was that the divine fire of the great Tao was extremely difficult to condense. Even if some old monsters had lived for countless years, because they were unable to condense a second divine fire of the great Tao, their cultivation stagnated and they were unable to improve. In addition, there was also a difference between the quasi-emperor realm and the peak. The difference between a peak quasi-emperor and an ordinary quasi-emperor was like the difference between a peak saint king and an ordinary saint king. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. But according to Hong Yu and the others, there were many peak figures in the world, and peak saint realm was not uncommon. Only peak quasi-emperors were extremely rare. The reason was that when breaking through the saint realm, one would encounter an extremely terrifying and peerless calamity. Especially for peak saint kings, if they wanted to forcibly prove their Tao and step into the peak quasi-emperor realm, there was almost no hope of success. Only 1 in 10,000 can step into the peak quasi-emperor realm. This was the consensus of the entire starry sky world. After understanding this news, Lin Sun finally realized that with his current combat strength, he might be able to kill the existence of the quasi-emperor realm across a great realm. But if he encountered an extremely rare and terrifying figure like the quasi-emperor, he would definitely be in danger. Peak quasi-emperor, 1 in 10,000. I wonder what kind of calamity I will encounter when I break through the saint realm and want to achieve the quasi-emperor realm. Lin Sun couldn't help but shiver at the thought of this. The road to the peak was always full of dangers and taboos, terrifying and unpredictable. From this day on, Lin Sun once again went into seclusion. In terms of cultivation, he was already at the late stage of the Saint King realm, and it was impossible for him to make a breakthrough in a short period of time. His focus was on refining martial arts and comprehending the great Tao. In the 3rd month of Lin Sun's seclusion, in the cave residence, Lin Sun's body was shining, flowing with a blazing rain of light, and in the divine palace of lungs in his body, there was an amazing rhythm of life. Soon, with a sound like the beginning of heaven and earth, a dazzling white light suddenly rushed out from the spiritual platform above Lin Sun's head. It was as brilliant as the sun, sharp and dazzling. Gradually, the white light condensed and transformed into a figure that wore a white robe and was suffused with a terrifying and fierce aura. He was like a peerlessly sharp divine sword that had descended from the heavens, and his light shone coldly into the 9 heavens. Platinum Taoist body. Gold, one of the 5 elements, was the innate source of killing, the sharpness of all things, the power of killing, and the essence of void Taoist Qi. This was a doppelganger of the great Tao bred by the platinum divine embryo. Its aura was peerless, fierce and domineering, with a charm of invincibility and invincibility. This was also the 5th doppelganger of the great Tao that Lin Sun had condensed so far. So far, the 5 viscera and divine embryos had all condensed into the doppelganger of the great Tao, so that Lin Sun's cultivation of the Golden Court scripture had also reached the consummation of the 5 flavors realm. It should be known that the Golden Court scripture was divided into 4 realms, namely 5 skandha, 5 colors, 5 flavors, and 5 virtues. 5 skandha was the accumulation of spiritual qi in the 5 viscera. 5 colors was the condensation of the spiritual qi into the 5 viscera and divine embryos. 5 flavors was the cultivation of the 5 elements Taoist body with the 5 viscera and divine embryos, which was the current realm of Lin Sun. Next was the 5 virtues realm. When reached this realm, the 5 doppelganger of the great Tao would have their own spiritual awareness and cultivation, and their cultivation would not be weaker than the original. However, the 5 virtues realm was extremely obscure, involving the mystery of dividing cultivation and spiritual awareness. With Lin Sun's current realm, he could not comprehend and control it. According to his speculation, when he had the cultivation of the quasi-emperor realm, he might have the foundation to comprehend the mystery of the 5 virtues realm. Boom! As Lin Sun's essence, qi, and spirit were integrated into the platinum body, countless wonderful insights came to his mind like a tide. After meditating in silence for a long time, the white-robed Lin Sun's heart moved, and the qi around him suddenly roared. Faintly, countless sharp platinum qi swept out of his pores, just like hundreds of millions of sword edges emerging at the same time, emitting a frightening light. The nearby void was torn apart, making a sizzling sound. Looking from a distance, Lin Sun was like a heavenly sword coming to the world, showing off his sharpness, as if he was going to cut the sky, the earth, and everything in the void. Condense! Lin Sun raised his hand, and the billions of misty platinum qi around him gathered in his palm, and finally turned into a little light. The light was condensed to the extreme, sharp, and dazzling, as if it could tear people's souls apart. The entire Immortal's Cave was instantly plunged into a terrifying and austere atmosphere. But in the end, with Lin Sun's thoughts, the dazzling and sharp light gradually disappeared in his palm. But Lin Sun couldn't calm down. Because this supernatural power was called Stab of Sharpness. It was the talent power of the platinum body, and the power of one stab could shock ghosts and gods. According to Lin Sun's estimation, once the stab of sharpness was out, even a figure in the first level of the quasi-emperor realm would not be able to avoid it. Because this stab was too fast, too sharp, and too overbearing. It gathered the power of the platinum body in one point, and suddenly burst out with the most terrible power. Green wood Taoist body controls the power of life and death. Yellow earth Taoist body controls the seal of all living beings. Black water Taoist body controls the 3,000 drownings. Red fire Taoist body controls the burning eyes, and platinum Taoist body controls the stab of sharpness. The lethality of this talent is undoubtedly the sharpest among the 5 major Taoist bodies. Lin Sun silently comprehended the mystery of the platinum body, and was amazed in his heart. 5 doppelgangers of Taoist body, 5 kinds of supreme talents, and 5 kinds of completely different powers. Such a Taoist scripture could absolutely be called unprecedented. This caused Gu Yupu's attainments in the Grand Tao to be even more shocking and extraordinary. Chapter 2020. After cultivating the platinum Tao body, Lin Sun put all his effort into perfecting the Tao domain. With a flip of his palm, the crystal-clear void great Tao disk that was round like a moon appeared. A pair of mysterious symbols that looked like swimming fish on the disk deduced countless mysterious marks of the Tao. The void Great Tao disk could help cultivators deduce and comprehend the essence of the Great Tao. Lin Sun took a deep breath and immersed himself in it. In an instant, the power of the Great Tao that he controlled appeared in the void Great Tao disk-like mark. For example, the star-devouring Tao, the true dragon Tao, the Tao of water and fire, the Tao of Taiji, the Tao of immortality, all of them appeared in the void Great Tao disk, and then a clear and marvelous scene was reflected in Lin Sun's mind. As he seriously comprehended and deduced, a strange power also surged out from the void Great Tao plate, causing his comprehension and deduction speed to suddenly increase by a large margin. Countless areas that were vague, obscure, and puzzling in the past were solved one by one. The comprehension that Lin Sun obtained after the puzzles were solved caused him to be completely immersed in it. He was so happy that he couldn't extricate himself. At the same time, the Tao domain appeared behind him. Sometimes it transformed into a furnace, sometimes it transformed into an abyss, and sometimes it returned to chaos. As Lin Sun continued to deduce and comprehend, the power of the Great Tao that was gathered in it became stronger and stronger. Time flew, and several months had passed unknowingly. While Lin Sun was cultivating in seclusion, a storm was brewing in the outside world. As the time of the Tao Discussion Grand Meeting approached, the Tao Discussion selection in the other 48 states of the primordial world, excluding the Central Earth state, had all come to an end. Just like the Cloud Prefecture, the top 10 experts of these prefectures were chosen through the Tao Discussion selection method. The 48 states represented that there were 480 peerless experts that had emerged through the selection, and they would soon participate in the Tao Discussion Grand Meeting. The primordial world was vast and boundless. Even if the Central Earth state was disregarded, there were billions of living beings in the other state. But in the end, only 480 people were qualified to participate in the Tao Discussion Grand Meeting. Without a doubt, these 480 people were definitely the most dazzling and outstanding group of experts among the Ultimate Sage King. However, the ones that received the most attention were the first-place candidates from each prefecture. Miss Xianyu, this is all the information we've gathered recently. It lists the names, cultivation levels, and origins of the top 10 people in each province. In the 4 Stars Tao sect, Jiang Heng, Ji Qian, and the other successors handed a jade slip to Jintian Xianyue. Thanks a lot. After expressing his gratitude, Jintian Xianyue began to flip through the book. Her gaze fell directly on the number 1 cultivators of each continent, temporarily ignoring all the others. Wang Yichen, the champion of the Azure Province's Tao Discussion Selection, the strongest core successor of the Azure Province's number 1 sect, the Spirit Snow Sword sect. His cultivation base is at the Perfection Saint King stage, and he's known as the Azure Province's number 1 Saint King of the Sword Tao. Ming Qiang, the champion of the Nether Province's Tao Discussion Selection. He is the leader of the Underworld Tao sect's younger generation, and he cultivates the Underworld God Tao scripture. He is known as the number 1 Sacred King among soul cultivators in the Underworld Province. Su Qingjian, the champion of the Star Province's Tao sparring selection, the strongest Saint King of the Astral Battle sect. As she read through the names one by one, Jintian Xianyue felt an indescribable pressure surge in her heart. Merely the experts that were ranked first in the 48 continents on this list could be said to be outstanding figures of the present age, the outstanding talents of their respective states, and they shocked the masses. Even if the number 1 cultivators of each prefecture can't compare to young master, they should at least be peerless experts like Lu Dubu and Wu Huang. Jintian Xianyue muttered in her heart. These were merely the dazzling figures that had emerged from the 48 prefectures. According to her knowledge, the core figures of the 6 great Tao courts and 10 great combat clans of the Central Earth state were bound to be even stronger, and each one was more monstrous and abnormal than the last. Moreover, it wasn't just limited to the primordial world that could participate in the Tao discussion grand meeting this time. There were similarly countless peerless and monstrous geniuses from the other worlds in the starry sky that had arrived successively, and they were eyeing the Tao discussion grand meeting covetously. The Cloud Prefecture Tao discussion allowed us to deeply understand what it means by "there's always someone stronger out there." Jiang Hing sighed with emotion at the side. Now, the Tao discussion grand meeting will be held in another month. At that time, how many inconceivable and peerless experts would have surged into appearance? These words caused Ji Qianning and the other disciples of the Tao sect to sigh endlessly. In this world, there would never be a lack of more formidable and formidable figures. Would anyone dare to call themselves truly invincible? Would anyone dare to say they wouldn't lose? After a long time, Jintian Xianyue carefully put the list away. She hadn't forgotten that her young master had instructed her before he entered into closed-door cultivation to gather more information related to the Tao discussion grand meeting. Presently, some of the peerless geniuses of the Central Earth Prefecture have already targeted the top figures of the 48 prefectures. Ji Qian said abruptly. It's even to the extent that some people have spread the word that when these top figures enter the Central Earth Prefecture, they'll make a show of strength before the Tao discussion grand meeting even begins. As soon as these words were spoken, it caused the hearts of many to shake. If the primordial world was said to be the number one world in the starry sky, and it was the number one world that everyone in the world knew of, then the Central Earth Prefecture would be the number one prefecture in the primordial world. The 6 great Tao courts, the 10 great war clans, and many terrifying emperor clan forces were all located there. As a result, countless dazzling and monstrous figures had emerged from there. For example, why was this Tao discussion grand meeting able to attract the attention of all the heavens in the starry sky? It was because the 6 great Tao courts were hosting this grand meeting. And among the colossal forces like the 6 great Tao courts, which of them didn't have a few monstrous figures that were so powerful that they couldn't be measured by common sense? If these people targeted the top figures of the 48 prefectures, it was indeed enough to make everyone pay attention to them. This isn't a lie. According to what I know, the number one core disciple of the primordial Tao court, Kong Zhao, who has the title of primordial genius, once said that before the Tao discussion grand meeting began, he would make all the top figures of the prefectures lower their heads. Ji Qian said. As soon as these words were spoken, Jintian Xianyue couldn't help but frown. Kong Zhao. How could she not have heard of him? This person was ranked 5th on the King Sage ranking of all heavens, and he had shaken the starry sky hundreds of years ago. He came from the Emperor clan, the Kong clan, and had the title of Primordial Genius, as well as the title of Kong clan. There were countless titles and rumors about him. Back on the boat, young master killed many experts of the Kong clan. After arriving in the primordial world, you even killed Kong Yu and the others from the primordial Tao court. If Kong Zhao finds out about these things, he will definitely point the finger at young master. Jintian Xianyue recalled some of the past and felt somewhat worried. Which one of the top 10 on the King Sage ranking was not a famous peerless genius in the starry sky? And Kong Zhao was ranked 5th. However, young master is not someone ordinary people can compare to. If Kong Zhao really dares to cause trouble for young master, the outcome is still uncertain. Jintian Xianyue fell into deep thought. Even Kong Zhao, who is ranked 5th, dares to say such words. I really don't know how terrifying those ranked before him are, someone murmured. As far as I know, those ranked in the top 10 on the King Sage ranking would have long broken through and become quasi-emperors if they weren't qualified to participate in this Tao exchange grand meeting. Someone said in a low voice, in short, these monstrous existences are all suppressing their cultivation level. Whoever encounters them at the Tao exchange grand meeting will be unlucky. That's not necessarily true. As far as I know, the King Sage ranking is only a list. It can't possibly list all the powerful figures in the world, someone said in a low voice. For example, among those peerless geniuses from other worlds in the starry sky, there must be peerless figures who are not weaker than Kong Zhao. Let's not talk about others. Fellow Jean D's name doesn't even appear on the King Sage ranking, but he's now the #1 person in our Cloud Prefecture. These words attracted many voices of agreement. That's right. I also heard that because this Tao Exchange Grand Meeting has attracted the attention of all the heavens, the Black-Yellow Tao Court has also decided to re-rank the King Sage ranking at this Grand Meeting. Ji Qian suddenly said, for example, regardless of fellow Jean D's ranking in the Tao Exchange Grand Meeting, with his current battle strength, he can definitely easily be ranked on the ranking. As for his final ranking, it will depend on his performance at the Tao Exchange Grand Meeting. Jintian Xianyue listened silently and did not express her opinion. But she knew that at the Tao Exchange Grand Meeting, with young Master's battle strength, he would most likely encounter some unexpected enemies. After all, the influence of this grand meeting could be described as unprecedented and rare. Geniuses, monstrous geniuses, and geniuses of the same cultivation level would gather together. Their strength would only be more abnormal than the last. I just don't know what rank young Master will obtain at the Tao Exchange Grand Meeting. Jintian Xianyue was stunned. Discussions like this had recently occurred in almost every state in the primordial world. It was unknown how many major forces and cultivators were looking forward to the arrival of such a grand meeting. A storm was brewing all over the world, and the news about the Tao Exchange Grand Meeting was getting more and more intense. As for Lin Sun and the other top figures of the 48 states, they had become the focus of attention of all parties. Of course, people were concerned about the name Jean D. Similarly, in the Central Earth Tao state, the list of Lin Sun and the other 48 top figures was also presented to the 6 great Tao courts, the 10 great battle clans and other major forces. Lin Sun, who was in seclusion, was unaware of all this. Recently, with the help of the Void Great Way Plate, his Tao field had become more and more powerful, and it had faintly shown a kind of extremely perfect charm. But after all, it was still a little lacking. It still doesn't work. On this day, Lin Sun woke up from meditation and frowned. He was only one step away from deducing his Tao field to the extreme, but it was this step that was like a barrier. Lin Sun had tried thousands of times, but he could not break it.